Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our public hearing today on Virginia's budget. I'm Senator Janet Howell, and I represent parts of Arlington and Fairfax counties, and I'm chairman of the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee. This is one of 4 virtual regional hearings on the state budget being held across the Commonwealth today by the Senate Finance and Appropriations and the House Appropriations Committees. Each year, the committees are required by law to hold a series of public hearings on the governor's proposed budget to give all of you, the citizens of Virginia, the opportunity to comment on specific issues of concern to you. Today is your opportunity to talk, and our job is, as legislators, is to listen to you. We will not be asking you questions or making any comments on your testimony. Let me take a moment before we begin to have the other legislators with us today introduce themselves. Staff will call out your name, and then you may state your name and the district you represent.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Tweedy. So I'll start Senator Vogel.
Good morning. I'm Senator Jill Vogel, and I represent the 27th State Senate District.
Senator Barker.
Hi, I'm Senator George Barker. I represent the 39th District, which has parts of Alexandria, Fairfax, and Prince William.
Senator Peterson.
Good morning. This is Chap Peterson. I represent the 34th Senate District, Fairfax City, and Central and Western Fairfax County.
Right, Delegate Torian.
Good morning. I'm Delegate Luke Torian. I represent the 52nd House District, which comprises of Occoquan, Woodbridge, Dale City, and Dumfries.
Delegate Sickles.
Good morning. I'm Mark Sickles. I represent the 43rd District in Southern Fairfax County, which includes the Greater Franconia area, Kingstown, Huntington, and Lorton. Thank you for tuning in today.
Delegate Plum.
Good morning. I'm Delegate Ken Plum. I represent the 36th District. That's Reston and parts of Herndon and Vienna. Thank you all for participating in our public hearing. We look forward to your recommendations.
Delegate Bulova.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Delegate David Bulova. I represent the 37th District, which is the city of Fairfax and parts of Central Fairfax County stretching out to Centerville.
Delegate Kryzak.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Kryzak. I'm the delegate from the 44th District, which is the Mount Vernon and Lee portions of Fairfax County.
Delegate Reed.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Delegate David Reed, and I represent the 32nd District, which is the eastern portion of Loudoun County.
And Senator Marsden has also joined us. Senator Marsden.
Hi, this is Senator Dave Marsden from the 37th District in Fairfax County. It's good to be here.
So the members present, Madam Chair.
Thank you. As you can tell, we have a great interest in what you have to say. This is really good turnout of the members from Northern Virginia of one of our money committees, and thank you all for being here. This year, we've changed the format of the public hearings, which are usually held in person, to a virtual meeting due to the coronavirus pandemic. I'm going to start out with a few simple ground rules that will help our hearing today go smoothly, and at the same time give everyone the opportunity to be heard in a reasonable amount of time. First, when you signed up to speak, you received an email with a Zoom link for the hearing. As of this morning, the House Appropriations and Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee websites were updated to include a listing of each speaker who signed up to speak along with a number. That's the order in which you will speak. Staff from time to time will call out these numbers along with the name from the sign-up list to give you an idea of how far we are down the list. If you are not present at your time to speak for whatever reason, then you will be allowed to speak at the end if you are present in the meeting. As we get closer to your number, staff will move you from the waiting area into the actual meeting room so that you can speak. However, please do not speak until your name is called. Remember to unmute yourself as soon as your name is called to minimize transition times. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes or less. That way we can all be heard in a reasonable amount of time and no one will be left out. We will stay on the meeting until the last speaker that has signed up has had the opportunity to be heard. Please remember, near the end of your 3 minutes, a timer will sound. Please wrap up your comments at that time. After you've completed speaking, staff will move you back into the waiting room where you can continue to watch the hearing or leave altogether. Finally, to hear as many issues as possible and to be respectful of the time of others in the audience, we ask that you avoid duplication when testifying. I can tell you from years and years of experience that repeating the same testimony on the same issue can actually be counterproductive. If there are several people speaking from the same group, we encourage you to have one spokesperson. You can always mention how many people in your group have shown up to support your cause. Not only does that save time for everyone, but it's really much more effective when making your case. That's pretty much it. We're glad to be here, and I hope that each one of us will learn something new today, something that we hadn't thought about before. That's the big reason why we're here. And now we'll begin, and staff will call out our first speaker, who is number 1 on the list.
Yes, good morning. My name is Andrea Peakson with House Appropriations. Marissa Goldsmith, if you would please begin your remarks.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Marissa Goldsmith, and because we have a snow day today, I can introduce you to my daughter, Anna, who's sitting right here with me. Anna is a bright and happy child who enjoys school and is eager to learn. With her physical disability, though, she requires constant care, attention, and close supervision. Both my husband and I work full time, and when the pandemic began, we were able to work from home. But unlike other families, we simply didn't have an option to put her in another room while we worked or, while she played or attended virtual school. There was always a need for one of us to by her side to help her out. And I am self-employed, so luckily I had the flexibility to go down to part-time. But I have no leave or vacation time because I'm self-employed. So when I don't work, I don't earn. And then for the first 3 months of the pandemic, we also decided it was best not to let anyone in the house. So I would care for her during the day while my husband worked. In the afternoon, in the evening, he'd care for her and I'd go downstairs and start working. It was exhausting. And despite the fact that we were in lockdown in the same house, my husband and I rarely saw each other. And so after those 3 months, when we decided it would be safe to have a caregiver enter the house and give us some relief, it took over 3 months for us to find someone. Even when we shifted from consumer directed, looking on care.com to an agency model, there was an extreme shortage of health. Yeah, Ms. Bell helped us out. That's right. There was an extreme shortage of health professionals available, and that shortage persists to this day. We spent nearly 6 months, day and night, as Anna's attendants. While we loved taking care of her as our child, we were also exhausted, and it made it extremely difficult to relate to her as our child instead of our patient. During this time, it was so important to know that we were able to get paid for providing her care. And that is why I urge you to keep this flexibility so that parents can provide health services to their children and get paid for it just the same as a healthcare professional would. Lastly, it is absolutely imperative that we increase the pay rates for in-home providers as outlined in the DD Rescue Plan. As we stare down the barrel of Omicron, it's becoming more likely that we're going to need to remove our vulnerable children from these crowded schools again and return to virtual learning. And my husband and I will be right back where we were in 2020 with no qualified caregivers to give her support. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to our second speaker. And I should mention too, if you're calling in on the phone and we can't identify you and skip over you, please hit *9 to raise your hand and we'll let you in. Second speaker, Melissa Chabot.
Good morning. Thank you for your time today. My name is Melissa Chabot, and I'm here to ask you to fund the core services waiver because our current outdated care system of only supporting individuals once they reach a crisis point could be much improved by supporting families on the developmental disability waiver waitlist with core services. This is a personal issue for me and my family. My adorable son, Owen, received his moderate to severe autism diagnosis in May of 2020. And we're going through the process of getting him on the developmental disability waiver waitlist right now. Did you know that over 14,000 people are on that list, only receiving assistance when their loved one is in crisis? Shouldn't special needs families get the help that they need to prevent a crisis situation? 14,000 individuals and their families need help right now, and that's why I'm here asking for your support in funding the core services waiver. I want to outline for you the huge impact that this funding would do for my son, Owen. First, we would receive regular ongoing care funded on a weekly basis. And when that runs out, we would be eligible for 480 annual hours of respite to use when we run out of those weekly services for school breaks, summer vacations. And this is the kind of care and support that helps families manage safety, stress, and work. Third, we would be connected to coordinators who would help us line up services and make a plan for all that Owen needs. I am struggling to stay organized and advocate for Owen. As my son grows older and transitions to high school and beyond, I can say with 100% confidence that I will need help navigating that system. Fourth, funding for assistive technology to help Owen interact with the world. The research is very clear. AAC devices decrease difficult behaviors and increase the ability to participate in home, school, and the community. Finally, Medicaid would reduce or eliminate medical copays. My family pays over $10,000 a year in copays, and that's with insurance. These costs, plus the waitlist for services and daytime availability of providers, means that a lot of kids are going without early intervention services. In conclusion, special needs families in Virginia, like mine, need support before a crisis occurs. Funding core services will make people's lives better. Please support Owen and all the other children and adults with disabilities that deserve help before a crisis. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Broder.
Good morning, members of Senate Finance and House Appropriations, and thank you for hosting today's hearing. My name is David Broder. I'm proud to serve as the president of SEIU Virginia 512, a union, a union of essential home care workers and public service workers. I'm also a dad of 2 public school students, a Fairfax County resident, and a proud Virginia taxpayer. I'm here today to say thank you for the historic progress we have made over the past 2 years, to ask you to protect that progress, and to ask that we continue to invest in making Virginia the best state for working families. For far too long, too many working Virginians have struggled with few protections on the job. In fact, 2 years ago, Oxfam America had ranked us as the worst state for working people. But I'm glad to say that is no longer the case as we jumped all the way to 23rd best, the largest jump in the history of their study. That happened because you didn't shy away from these challenges. You faced them head on and you got to work. Together, over the past 2 years, we have made it easier for working people to thrive by expanding collective bargaining rights, raising the minimum wage, and fighting wage theft. We made it easier for people to exercise their right to vote safely. We began to tackle systemic racism in our healthcare, housing, education, and criminal justice systems so that everyone can succeed. And we took steps to ensure that immigrants to Virginia would be welcomed and supported so that our communities would be stronger. Is our work done? Of course not, but we have made extraordinary progress. As I mentioned, just 2 years after our last place ranking in the Oxfam study, we moved from the worst state for workers to the 23rd best, while maintaining our ranking as the best state for business in multiple studies. You proved that for our economy to truly thrive, for businesses to truly succeed, that workers must have protections, fair pay, and a seat at the table. I'm here to say thank you. I'm here to say that we must protect our shared progress and that we must continue our efforts so that Virginia is ranked as the best state for workers as well as for businesses. You'll hear from SEIU members today, and your colleagues will hear from SEIU members at regional hearings across the Commonwealth, asking you to protect that progress by protecting collective bargaining rights and minimum wage increases, as well as asking you to continue our progress by continuing to invest in quality home care, by raising reimbursement rates and expanding benefits, to invest in quality public services by funding local government and the frontline workers who make it work, and to invest in good union jobs with paid leave and a real seat at the table for all Virginians. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your leadership. Together, we will make Virginia the best state for working families.
Thank you.
Our fourth speaker, Angelo Wider.
Good morning, and thank you for having hearing public comments today. My name is Angelo Wider. I am the board chair for the Virginia Association of Community Service Board. I am here to speak to the needs of individuals with behavioral health conditions and developmental disabilities and how Virginia CSBs need your support in order to provide high quality services to these populations. The top critical issue facing CSBs is the workforce crisis, and therefore VACSB's top priority is for funding to address it. The governor's introduced budget does not contain any direct funding to support CSB workforce development initiatives. CSBs have the same critical staffing issues that state psychiatric hospitals do, and yet their needs have not been supported by the state in the same way. In order to continue enhanced community-based service care, CSBs must have funding to implement their own recruitment and retention strategies. VACSB's top priority is a $167.5 million investment in recruitment and retention initiative for CSBs. The four-pronged approach includes quarterly recruitment and retention bonuses, funds to create a path to licensure by paying for clinical supervision hours, funding for student loan repayments, funding for scholarships to increase educational attainment. Let me point out that VACSB does not normally designate one budget priority over the others. This year is different. CSBs had severe staffing issues before the pandemic, and the pandemic only exacerbated this workforce issue. It is worth noting the introduced budget does contain a 10% salary increase for state employees, which does include CSBs, but the amount of funding each CSB would receive is calculated based on CSB state general fund allocation and not the actual cost to provide a 10% raise for each of his full-time positions. This funding would not be adequate to serve as a true recruitment or retention tool in the CSB system. VACSB is thankful that the introduced budget does contain increased funds for STEP VA, permanent supported housing, developmental disabilities, waiver slots, and an increase in the reimbursement rate for DD waiver services. Please preserve these items in the budget, but keep in mind that CSBs cannot expand or enhance service unless workforce development is addressed at the same time. I cannot emphasize enough how critical it is that CSBs are see some support in their workforce crisis. Please support funds for CSB's workforce recruitment and retention initiatives. The VACSB will provide each of you with a full list of our priorities, including a breakdown, of course, for each of the prongs of the workforce development strategy. Thank you for listening, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Holly Rodenheiser.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Holly Rodenheiser, and I'm the Director of Developmental Services for Encircle. Encircle is a nonprofit organization that provides a variety of human services around the state and has been in operation for over 130 years. I've worked in this field for almost 20 years, and a good 16 of those years were in Northern Virginia solely, and now I work statewide. I started as a frontline worker, so I know how challenging it is to provide care to people with developmental disabilities around the clock. For example, our employees bathe, feed, dress, give medication, and provide medical and behavioral supports to the most vulnerable people in our community. This is a very hard but rewarding job. However, we must pay competitive wages so that our employees who work as direct support professionals, which we call DSPs, can make this a career. Many of our DSPs have to work 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to make ends meet. And essentially, they could make more working in fast food or retail than they can providing daily supports to someone with a disability. In my 20 years, it has never been more challenging to hire DSPs than it is today, and that is greatly due to the low wages that we pay. I'm asking 2 things of you. First, please support the increased funding of $294 million for Medicaid waiver services for people with developmental disabilities that is currently in Governor Northam's budget. In addition, I'm asking that you please support a $43 million budget amendment to increase rates for services that were left out of his budget. One of those is group homes for 5 to 8 residents. Encircle's in the process of opening a 5-bed group home in Northern Virginia, Fairfax to be specific, through a partnership with Marion Homes. It is financially impossible for us to operate a group home in that region with fewer than 5 residents. And so it's kind of tied our hands. Based on the high cost of living in Northern Virginia, it is imperative that we pay competitive wages so that people who provide supports to the most vulnerable in our community can make a living wage. Please consider those options, and I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our 6th speaker, Ben King.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ben King. I live in Fairfax, Virginia. I lived in a group home, but it was not needed. I was not what I needed. I could not find a good home for me. I live home with my parents. The staff could not help me. I could not find another housing option. Now I'm getting ready to move out of Northern Virginia. Another house. My sister quit her job to be caring provide in Richmond. We need to pay more labor and find more new housing options. I should choose more. Please support the IDD rescue plan. Thank you and have a good day. And I hope you guys can support the IDD waiver. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ben. Good job.
Our 7th speaker, Ken Israel.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for letting me speak today. I am speaking as someone who lost their identity because of a traumatic brain injury. I was a writer at Department of Health and Human Services, writing about public and clinical health. With my degree in creative writing, I was also working on a novel and scratching out short stories. I loved hiking in Great Falls. I love to travel. Most recently traveled across Iceland. On June 30th, 2019, I struck my head on a wooden beam outside my basement apartment and suffered a traumatic brain injury. Unfortunately, my care was mishandled early in my treatment, and like 1 in 5 TBI survivors, I developed post-concussion syndrome, which means my symptoms have persisted 2.5 years into recovery. I have vision issues, exercise intolerance, and debilitating headaches. My central nervous system interprets light and sound as pain. Needless to say, I have a difficult time outside or in bright rooms. I'm unable to work right now. Travel is out. Grocery shopping is difficult. I eventually found the right providers, and today I have a good recovery protocol. Every day I do vision and vestibular exercises. I do physical therapy. I do cognitive exercises. I do meditation. But I have spent too much time in recovery fighting and scrabbling for basic services. And I'm talking about affordable transportation, nutrition assistance, and housing, among other things. I don't qualify for SNAP right now, and I'm struggling to find housing assistance. I'm in the process of grieving the loss of who I was and embracing a new life. It's very difficult, but I have been able to rely on a community of fellow survivors. But I feel like I can't heal while so much of my life has been destabilized by a lack of basic services. A year ago, I lost my apartment in DC, and I moved out here to Virginia. I'm in Gainesville now. And my housing situation out here is very precarious. My stuff is in storage. So what can be done to help survivors like me? Well, Brain Injury Association of Virginia and Alliance of Brain Injury Services Providers is requesting funding to expand case management services and housing assistance for persons with brain injury. This would really help because people like me don't have the cognitive capacity to move forward in recovery and fight tooth and nail to gain access to basic necessities like housing. And being out on the street with a TBI terrifies me. Finding safe, affordable housing would be life-changing for me and for many other survivors. I hope some of this has been helpful and informative. Thank you for listening and letting me share today.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you.
Speaker 8, Karen Smith.
Good morning. I'm Karen Smith, the Executive Director of the ARC of Greater Prince William. The ARC of Virginia, along with Virginia Access, is going to be presenting a rescue plan for our broken system for the DE community. We are working together, united, because this crisis is such of a magnitude that it's overwhelming. In the summer, you folks graciously gave 12.5% increase for the year to keep us going. But now much of that increase is going to be taken away once this budget is going to be approved. Nothing is done about it. So we'll be going back to our old rates, and we certainly can't muster the courage and also the resources to keep us going. As an example, this past week with the snowstorm, we have paid thousands of dollars of overtime. We are going to be paying our snow plowers thousands of dollars. And if anybody has had a tree fallen, you know how much it is to get someone to cut up and remove trees. And we have several of them on our properties that need to be removed. So these unexpected expenses certainly aren't part of our rates. And we need certainly to increase and encourage our workforce to do the best possible job they can. We also know that there's a long waiting list, but so many of those folks have not been able to get a waiver service slot because providers are not there anymore. We want to fund priority one, but before we do that, we must have the providers get adequate pay. And we look to you in Northern Virginia for the leadership on that. I want to share one thing that, we always think that these things don't happen in Northern Virginia, but they do. This past year, we literally rescued someone who had been laying flat in his bed 7.5 years, never taken to the doctor, never gotten a bath or a shower. He has cerebral palsy. And all of a sudden there was a crisis in the family and he had to get out of the house. And here we went in and the stench was so bad, people had a hard time not throwing up. We brought him back in. He was not necessarily placed in the right placement in our group home system because he was much higher functioning than what we had thought. When he got back into our group home system, we cleaned him up and everything. He's a person that should be in supported living. And if we could give him the proper supports that he needs physically, then he certainly could be very independent in his life. Please help us redesign and rescue our DD waiver system so that folks can be served and the providers can provide an adequate salary for their workers. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Your number 9, Kelly Lang.
Thank you for allowing me time to speak today. I'm Kelly Lang. I live in Leesburg, and I'm here to discuss the needs of the brain injury community. Excuse me. Nearly 320,000 Virginians are disabled because of brain injury. Current levels of state-supported funding to provide community-based brain injury services is $6.75 million or $6 per person. I first want to address the service shortage to individuals with brain injury and their families. I'm passionate about this because I am both a brain injury survivor and caregiver to a daughter with a brain injury. Our injuries occurred 20 years ago, and I've been advocating for services since the moment we arrived in the emergency room. The fight continues to ensure she has all the support she needs and deserves. My daughter received case management with brain injury services, and we've been involved with Brain Injury Association of Virginia since 2002. Without these organizations, I do not know where we would be today. They have provided essential resources, referrals, and support during our times of struggle and transition. Brain injury programs are not easily accessible, and the waiting lists are long and cumbersome. She was placed on the wait list for 8 years before a slot opened. I know many families who were not as lucky, but why is 8 years considered lucky? It shouldn't be this difficult for families to get assistance. I'm asking you to support $570,000 to expand specialized community-based brain injury case management service in unserved areas. The additional funding would facilitate the hiring of 4 adult case managers and 2 pediatric case managers to serve these areas. We have looked for programs to help her learn independent living skills in a safe environment. Her high school transition teacher was able to secure a spot in the Woodrow Wilson Post-Secondary Education Rehab Transition Program. This gave her insight into some of the skills she will need to become independent. She's not achieved this goal, but we continue working on improving her abilities to be independent. I'm also asking you to support $1,125,000 to create a housing specialist position at each state-funded community-based brain injury program. Despite facing some of the same needs as those with individual and developmental disabilities, people with brain injury have little or no service options due to a lack of waiver supports. According to the Brain Injury Association of Virginia, 41% of the people who called their office last year reported that housing was one of their top 3 concerns. Community brain injury programs need housing staff to work with local housing entities, represent the needs of brain injury groups in housing related conversations, and work to maintain housing support and or related independent living skills to ensure their clients' safety and success. Thank you for allowing me the time to express my concerns today.
Thanks.
10th speaker on our list, Andrea Carpenter.
My heart broke a little when my son came home from school on the second Friday in December and said, let's do something fun tonight, something Christmassy. Even before COVID, a Christmas outing and most other outings were out of the question for our family. We can't do fun like regular folks. My name is Andrea Carpenter, and I will be speaking about respite care for families with someone on the DD waiver wait list. My husband, Jeff, and I are long-term Virginia residents. We adopted our daughter in 2008 and our son in 2010. Lila, our daughter, has a host of disabilities that began to present in force when she was 3, including autism spectrum disorder, intellectual disability,
debilitating anxiety, and a depressive illness called disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. Strong emotions, negative and positive, as well as unfamiliar environments and anything unexpected can send her into a rage. Lila has been on the waiver wait list for almost 9 years. Lila is a good soul who wants to please and do the right thing, but her behavior is not always within her control. Jeff, our son, and I have been hit, kicked, pinched, body slammed, pegged with shoes, and had our hair yanked on innumerable occasions. For years, the violence was daily. We went out only when absolutely necessary. Regular respite care would have gone a long, long way, but special needs caregivers are not free, and our money was needed for physical, speech, occupational, and behavior therapy. As much as I wish otherwise, I'm not a supermom. I couldn't manage Lila's appointments and extreme mood swings, plus our son in the house, along with a paying job. I've been out of the workforce for years. My mom lived nearby when the kids were young and could handle them for a few hours with liberal use of screen time for Lila, but she was diagnosed with dementia in 2015. We do not have other local family support. After years of trial and error, a persistent psychiatrist found a medication combo that helps Lila keep her cool most of the time in places where she feels safe and comfortable, like our house and her small classrooms at school. She can learn and succeed when her days are routine, predictable, and come with clear expectations. But all bets are off when we're out in the community or with friends and extended family. She tries, but often can't hang more than half an hour without becoming overloaded. The lack of social opportunity and ability to be out and about isn't healthy for the rest of us. Our son is devastated when Lila melts down in public. Jeff and I have both suffered clinical depression. We are lucky we haven't become a special needs parents divorce statistic. Thank God Lila likes to swim. We can hit the neighborhood pool at off times and spend a few hours on the beach if we set up well before the crowds. I'd be completely off my rocker without a little touch of summer. Regular respite care would still go a long way, and it's within reach if you take the 2021 working group recommendation to provide core services to everyone on the waiting list. Though we've had some recent successes with short-term novel outings, we've also had aggression, reinforcing our belief that there are many things the four of us will never do together. We would love to leave Lila home with a trusted attendant and take our son hiking or snow tubing, on an Old Town ghost tour, or into the district to see the zoo lights and the Constitution. But special needs caregivers are still not free and our medical expenses are ongoing. So we wait for services and our lockdown continues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker 11, Frank Stevens. Mr. Stevens, kindly unmute yourself if you would like to share.
Go ahead and start, Frank. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, good morning. I am Frank Stevens. I am here to share the effect of inflation on life in Northern Virginia. Why, just last week, I sat out to seek a COVID test. We joined a long line of cars stretching for miles. It took us 2 hours to turn the corner and realize we were in line at a Starbucks. While we were in line, inflation had increased the price of coffee so much that the lady in front of me was trying to cancel her gym membership so that she could afford an iced quad shot caramel macchiato with extra cream. Oh, the horror. It was a Nova version of Sophie's Choice. Gym or latte? Gym or latte? What to do? What to do? This is not the kind of inflation problem that people on waivers are facing in using waiver funds for assistive technologies environmental modifications, and electronic home-based supports. They are suffering from skyrocketing prices in construction and electronics. It's also hard to find installers for small jobs. It has become extremely difficult to fund a meaningful project like installing ramps or modifying bathrooms or incorporating small home tech with the $5,000 limit on waiver assistance in each area. We are asking that the three limits be combined into a single $15,000 limit. This would allow for truly meaningful assistance in our lives without busting the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful sense of humor.
Thank you.
Our 12th speaker, Tammy Wandong.
Good morning. I'm Tammy Wandong Ware. I'm a Prince William County resident and I reside in the 31st District. I'm also an employee of Fairfax County of 32 years, where I presently work in adult and aging. And I'm also serve as the Fairfax chapter president of SEIU Virginia 512. I'm here today to speak in support of good union jobs, collective bargaining, and quality public services for all Virginians. During the pandemic, essential public service workers like me and my colleagues have been on the front lines of keeping our communities healthy and safe. We have provided vital health care, child care, transportation, sanitation, mental health services, and so much more. We have been called essential, but not always treated as essential. That's why we partnered with you to make changes. And over the past 2 years, we have made real progress. We have invested in essential public services, raised the minimum wage, and allowed local governments to opt into collective bargaining. Thanks to our work together and thanks to your leadership, Virginia has moved from the worst state for workers to the 23rd best, while retaining our ranking as the best state for business in multiple studies. To keep our economy strong, we must continue to protect workers. Fairfax County, where I work, recently passed collective bargaining. I personally put a lot of time working with the county to get this done because I know that collective bargaining is a powerful tool to ensure good union jobs and quality services for all people. Collective bargaining also means that I have a voice on the job. During the pandemic, many of our employees were assigned to a different job without any input or training. We did the work of someone who got paid more, but without any increase in our pay. My co-workers shared their challenges. One worker who provides critical child education services, but she struggles with homelessness. And another co-worker who contracted COVID on the job and had to burn through all her leave to recover. For these reasons alone and more, we look forward to getting to the bargaining table with Fairfax County in 2022 so we can protect all working families in our community. So I'm here today to ask you to protect our progress for Virginia's working families by protecting our essential collective bargaining rights and by protecting the improvements we have made on raising the minimum wage, fighting wage theft, and so much more. Let's continue our journey toward making Virginia the #1 state for workers and for businesses. Thank you, and I'll see you in Richmond.
Thank you.
Speaker number 13, Carol Skelly.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm a member of the Arlington County Community Services Board. The General Assembly has committed to rebasing developmental disabilities Medicaid waiver rates this year, and commissioned Burns and Associates to provide a detailed analysis of over 100 individual DD waiver rates. The average increase needed to make them competitive is 52%. We support the Burns rate increases, which are needed to address the desperate state of services for individuals with developmental disabilities. The rates, which have not been rebased since 2014, were not competitive at the start of the pandemic, but what were serious problems in early 2020 have turned into a major crisis due to the current workforce shortage. Service providers who were paying direct care workers $12 to $13 an hour pre-pandemic must now pay at least $18 an hour to compete with companies like Walmart, hence the 50% differential. Arlington clients with developmental disabilities are currently receiving about half their pre-pandemic client hours at day programs, due mainly to staffing shortages. Our residential programs are teetering on the brink of health and safety issues. We urge you not to support Governor Northam's proposal to pick and choose among the Burns rates. The governor's winners and losers approach includes no increases for traditional day support programs. These programs served 160 Arlington clients pre-pandemic, but are now serving only about 130, and many of those are on a 2-day-a-week schedule. The governor's budget also has no increases for group homes of more than 4 individuals. This means that half of Arlington's 12 group homes would receive no increase. We understand the advantages of moving residents to smaller homes, but in Arlington, real estate costs are a major barrier to adding more homes, as would be required to continue to serve the same number of clients. Arlington has 2 5-person group homes that were established in 2016 for severely disabled residents leaving the Northern Virginia Training Center. These homes have faced particular challenges during the pandemic, so it is very distressing to have their needs overlooked in the governor's budget. Thank you so much to all of you for your continuing service to Virginia in this difficult moment. We appreciate your consideration of our position.
Thank you.
Speaker 14, Raina Bumbray Graves.
Good morning. My name is Renee Bumbray Graves, and I'm a home care worker in Woodbridge, Virginia. I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a taxpayer, and I'm also a proud union member of SEIU Virginia 512, as well as on the board. I'm speaking today for quality home care and good union jobs for all care workers and all Virginians. I have been a home care worker for over 20 years. Presently, I have 2 of my relatives with disabilities that I care for in my home. So I really know up close and personal what it takes to to be a home care worker. I not only make sure their needs are met, but I also make sure that they stay healthy and independent and can live with dignity. Home care workers save the state money and keep the cost of Medicaid down by allowing people to stay in their own homes and out of costly nursing homes and emergency rooms. The pandemic has made our work more essential than ever. I am honored to carry on the tradition of Black women caregivers. The majority of home care workers are Black, brown, and immigrant women. Even though we provide essential labor, we'll still not protected, and paid what we deserve. We are underpaid with no health care or other benefits. Because of this, we have a shortage of home care workers, and it's very hard for consumers to find the care they need. We will all need care at some point in our lives. There are already 1.3 million Virginians over the age of 65, and that number is rising. Nearly 200,000 Virginians need assistance with personal grooming and dressing themselves, but there are fewer than 50,000 home care workers to meet their demand. That's why we have been working with you, our elected officials in the General Assembly, for over the past 2 years. Together, we have made real progress. We have raised pay, established the first paid sick days, created overtime protections, and expanded home care to more people than who need it. These improvements are a matter of life and death. Thank you. I'm here today to ask you to protect our progress for people with disabilities, the elderly, and care workers by protecting our home care program. Also, to continue to invest in a quality home care system for all Virginians so we can continue to make Virginia the best state for working families, because home care for families make all other work possible. I'm asking you to fund the following items this year in this year's budget. Quality home care for every person with a disability, older adults, and families that need it. A living wage for essential home care workers and paid sick day for home care workers, as well as making a package for people when they are going into retirement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our 15th speaker, Julius Reynolds.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Dr. Julius Reynolds. I'm a resident of Ashburn, Virginia, and I work as a juvenile probation officer in Loudoun County, Virginia, where I've been employed for the last 20 years. I'm a voter, I'm a taxpayer, and I'm a proud member of SEIU, and I'm the chair of SEIU Virginia 512. I'm here today to speak in support of quality public services and good union jobs for all public service workers in all Virginians. During the pandemic, essential public service workers like me and my colleagues were on the front lines of keeping our communities healthy and safe. We continue to provide essential care during this time, child care, transportation, mental health services, and so much more. In my job as a probation officer, I have an opportunity to impact young people's lives, and those people, young people who have stepped off the wayward path, I get an opportunity to redirect their behavior and then make them, citizens of the county in a positive way. Being an essential public worker is important to me because I not only impact the community, but I get to impact the quality of life in Loudoun County, and that's very important to me. Public service workers like me have been called essential, but we're not often treated like essential workers. We've gone years without raises, so lack of rights on the job, and it's made it very hard for our families as we serve in the community. Over the past years, we have made real progress. Just recently here in Loudoun County, we passed a collective bargaining ordinance where for the first time in history, we'll get a chance to actually have collective bargaining rights practiced in Loudoun County. And so that's very big deal. And it's a very historic moment here in Loudoun. And so I'm very proud of that. But the fight and struggle continues. We must protect the progress of Virginia's working family by protecting essential workers through these collective bargaining rights. We must continue to invest in essential public services and the workers like me and my colleagues who provide them. These social workers, sanitation workers, child educators, parks and rec staff, librarians, public health nurses, and so many more. To achieve these goals, I'm here to ask you to fund the following items in this year's budget. Local government services provided by county employees like me and my co-workers, I'm asking you to fund that. Quality home care for all people with disabilities, older adults, and families. And finally, good union jobs, paid sick days for all public service workers. Thank you. I look forward to working with you in Richmond this session and to keep our communities healthy and safe. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to hand the gavel over to Chairman Torian. Thanks.
We'll continue with our 16th speaker, Zaina Hutchinson.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm genuinely honored to be on this call with some incredible advocates in our community. It's just heartwarming and empowering. Again, my name is Zaina Hutchison. I am a mother to 2 kids, a wife, a student, and a passionate advocate for human rights, among other very important issues, as some of you know, and it's an honor to be here again. We at the Virginia Coalition for Human Rights are requesting a budget amendment to fund a JLARC study of the Virginia-Israel Advisory Board's standing as an advisory board. As a Virginian and as an immigrant woman of color who actively advocates for the rights of minorities, the underserved, and the marginalized, I do appreciate that Virginia has a system that encompasses advisory boards. It strengthens the fabric of our Commonwealth, and it helps diverse Virginia constituents advocate for and represent their respective communities' interests and concerns. I am alarmed that VIAB, a taxpayer-funded lobby group, one that represents the interests of a foreign wealthy government, is getting preferential treatment under the label of an advisory board, which I contend it is not, and I will explain why. While the Latino Advisory Board serves the interests of the Latino American community of Virginia, and the Asian Advisory Board serves the interests of the Asian American community of Virginia, and the African American Advisory Board serves the interests of the African American community of Virginia, the Virginia-Israel Advisory Board, however, is the only advisory board that represents the interests of a foreign state. From their own website, the Virginia-Israel Advisory Board is a government agency that helps Israeli companies build and grow their US operations in Virginia. In addition, these advisory boards, importantly, and I'm quoting, provide advice and counsel to an executive branch agency. However, in 2018, VIAB was singled out from the 36 other advisory boards listed on the Secretary of the Commonwealth's website and moved from the executive to the legislative branch. VIAB represents a foreign government agency whose employees are given full benefits and paid expenses, also have direct access to our legislators, highlighted by the fact that they are given an office in the Pocahontas building. Moreover, the many foreign governments that do business with Virginia do so through the Virginia Economic Development Program, VEDP. VIAB, however, represents the businesses and the economic interests of a foreign government, yet again, unlike similar entities, is quietly nestled within the legislature, conveniently avoiding existing oversight and accountability regulations. Hundreds of thousands of unaccountable Virginia taxpayer dollars go to empower this foreign state agency, while many local initiatives and groups, some testified today on this call, are continuously having to crowdfund and spend time on calls with legislators lobbying for a fraction of the budget given to VIAB, the Virginia Israel Advisory Board. This is unfair and should be concerning to all Virginians. Therefore, again, we are kindly requesting a budget amendment to fund a JLARC study of the Virginia Israel Advisory Board standing as an advisory board. Thank you so much for your time.
17th speaker on our list, Daniel Kozma.
Thank you for this opportunity. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. My name is Dan Kozma. I'm a resident of Arlington County. We live right across the street from Yorktown High School. We have my wife and I have a disabled son. He's 31 years old. He's going to be 32 on Friday. After years of trying to get him a placement in a group home, we finally got him a placement in a group home here in Arlington called Lincoln Street. And one of the things he was just placed in September. He had lived in our home up until this past September. And, you know, we provided much of his care, although we did have an aide. Since moving into the group home, and he's also in a day program at MVLE out in Springfield, Virginia, since the pandemic, but we understand the primary problem is low wages for people who work at MVLE and who work at Lincoln Street. Even since September at Lincoln Street, we've noticed that there is a lot of turnover and they're understaffed. What we really need is to have the developmentally disabled Medicaid waiver reimbursement rates raised. As Ms. Carol Skelly testified they need to go up at least 50%. The current wage rates are $12 to $13 an hour. They need to go up to at least $18 an hour in order to stay competitive with fast food establishments, Walmart, places like that. I saw a report today that the New York Times said 4.5 million people quit jobs this past year, and many of them for higher pay. And as I understand it, the pay rates for under the Medicaid waiver reimbursement rates have not gone up since 2014. There needs to be an adjustment. MVLE has cut their program to 2 days a week. They can't find sufficient people to drive transportation, so my wife drives him out there in our van because he's in a wheelchair all day. He can't walk, can't bathe himself, dress himself, feed himself. He needs constant care. And one day, we bring him home pretty frequently. One day I took him back. It was the evening, and there was only one staff member on duty at Lincoln Street. And I had to get him into bed, get him undressed, toilet him, and get him all set up because that one staff member, actually the director of that group home, really couldn't deal with him. He's quite a big young man. And I'm not complaining about doing it. I'm just saying that what is happening is that there is severe understaffing at both day programs and in the group homes where the developmentally disabled, seriously disabled people are living. And we need, I think we need to address that in Virginia to take care of these folks. If you'd like to see a picture of Stephen, that's him. He was receiving an award as we used to play Challenger baseball, and he received the Best Sportsman Award from the Arlington County Sports something, and that's Frank Howard, who was the home run king for the Senators, who was giving him his trophy. That's Stephen in his wheelchair receiving the award. In any event, we would very much appreciate it if the legislature, Virginia legislature, can address the funding needs for these programs, day programs and residential programs for the seriously disabled. Thank you.
Speaker number 18, James Vollmer.
Hi, I'm James Vollmer. I'm a home care worker and member of the home care chapter of SEIU Virginia 512. And I'm here to ask for good funding for wages and benefits, and also to ensure that we meet our core responsibilities before giving any funds back to taxpayers. I provided home care workers for my niece Kelly for about 6 years, and she just recently transferred to an adult handicapped waiver facilities and an adult wheelchair facility. And she's got cerebral palsy, can't walk or talk or toilet herself or feed herself, but she understands everything. She's the happiest person I know. And that's because she's got good caregiving services. When my sister died about 6 years ago, when I stepped in to watch my niece, my sister had a heart attack, by the way, but she told me that she could not keep caregiving people in more than about 6 months. She was constantly having a churning problem because they'd get the experience and go on to a better paying job. She had one person in all the years. My niece is now 27. And in all the years that she watched her, she had only one person that stayed 18 months. That's the longest. Most everybody else stayed less than 6 months. So that speaks to the fact that we are not meeting our core needs. The legislators need to make sure that we are meeting the core needs of our services to disabled. We got about at least 13,200 handicapped elderly people on disability waiver slot list, waiting an average of 10 years. When my niece got in, she had a 6-year waiting period. We cannot afford to say that we're going to be able to give funds back to taxpayers for rebates because they're paying too much and we have a big budget surplus when we are not meeting our core needs, not only in education, but in so many other areas as well. Yeah, I mean, not only in caregiving, but in so many other areas as well, like even in education system where we got so many schools dilapidated. And people aren't paying their fair share. I'm a business owner, and I can tell you we've got Tim Kaine tried to eliminate the dealer discount sales tax loophole. We got a $2,500 cap on yachts, sales tax cap on yachts costing over $50,000. No one else gets that. Farmers don't get it, et cetera, for their expensive equipment. So we've got plenty of giveaways to the well-connected big business owners, et cetera, that we're not collecting revenues from, but yet we can't afford to pay for essential services for the disabled. And we got 13,200 or more people on a disability waiver slot list. That's not having our priorities straight. We need to make sure we meet our core responsibilities first and foremost. We haven't been doing that. And I guess that's the end of my talk. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present this information. And home care workers deserve collective bargaining. People in cities and counties get it, but we're paid by the state, and the state still hasn't authorized that. So we need that as well. And shout out to Senator Janet Howell and Delegate Ken Plum. Thanks for being on here. Thanks for listening to me. Have a good day.
Speaker 19, David Manley.
Good morning, everybody. Madam Chairwoman, Mr. Chairman, assembled members of the committees. As the president of the Virginia Economic Developers Association and executive director of the Joint IDA with County, I'm here today to highlight and thank Governor Northam for his strong support of economic development in this proposed budget and to emphasize the importance of this funding to the Commonwealth's future economic competitiveness. Many of these funding recommendations are also consistent with Governor-elect Youngkin's priorities to create 400,000 new jobs during his term by focusing on attracting, retaining, and growing a talented workforce and make it easier to start and grow a business within the Commonwealth. The Virginia Economic Developers Association looks forward to working with him and his team to achieve these goals in every corner of the state. Virginia, as you know, is very fortunate to have so many assets: a world-class higher education system, the Port of Virginia, which has weathered the supply chain disruptions much better than our neighbors on the West Coast, a multimodal transportation network that is well-funded, and we're home to some of the most innovative companies, not just domestically, but around the world. While we've had many successes in recent years, we've also missed opportunities. As we continue to build and prepare for the post-pandemic economy, we know that site readiness is one area that needs significant focus, and the lack of prepared sites has hurt the Commonwealth when competing against neighboring states. Investment and jobs that could have come to Virginia have gone elsewhere. I'd like to focus on a few key areas and underscore the benefits of economic development funding included in this budget. The inclusion of $150 million to expand the Virginia Business Ready Sites program is critical to maintaining our attractiveness when recruiting companies. These funds will support the development of mega sites as well as mid-sized sites across the state. Both are important since Virginia must have an economic development program that focuses on the entire Commonwealth. The governor's proposed budget also maintains funding for Go Virginia, the Virginia Jobs Investment Program, and the Commonwealth's Development Opportunity Fund. These are all critical programs that the Virginia Economic Development Partnership utilizes to incentivize companies coming to Virginia. We know that the marketplace is only getting more competitive, and continuing strong funding for these programs is vital if we are to keep pace. Additionally, the proposed budget fully funds the Virginia Talent Accelerator Program with an additional $2.3 million per year. This program ensures we are preparing Virginians with the skills and talents that companies need, because if we don't, another state will. The $100 million allocated for Rebuild Virginia will continue to help small businesses recover from the pandemic. This program has already assisted over 4,000 small businesses, and we all know in our communities that small businesses are the lifeblood of our local economies. Finally, the $3.7 million increase per year is funding for the Virginia Enterprise Zone program, and funding to implement Virginia's international trade plan will allow the Commonwealth to work domestically and with foreign investors to generate further job creation. We know the jobs of tomorrow are diverse, and what may work for folks like myself in Southwest Virginia may be different than the needs in Northern Virginia or in Hampton Roads. The array of tools and sufficient funding will help ensure that the General Assembly and Governor-elect Young can have the resources necessary to fuel economic growth in the Commonwealth. The Virginia Economic Developers Association looks forward to working with the General Assembly and Virginia's new Secretary of Commerce and Trade to help drive economic development across the Commonwealth. Thank you for your support of economic development. We have a budget that greatly values the work Virginia is doing and that helps move the needle forward in generating more opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today and hear all these compelling stories. Thank you.
Speaker number 20, Erica Wood.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Erica Wood, speaking on behalf of the Northern Virginia Aging Network, and that includes the Commissions on Aging and the Area Agencies on Aging of Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince William, as well as regional service and advocacy groups. So I'll cover today two of the NVAN budget priorities: funding to support nursing home staffing standards and funding for the Virginia Insurance Counseling and Assistance, or VICAP program. Jane King will speak about paid sick leave for direct care providers. Nursing home staffing through registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, and certified nursing assistants, that's the very bedrock of quality care for Virginia facility residents. Yet the 2021 Joint Commission on Healthcare study on nursing home staffing found that 1/5 of Virginia's nursing homes are not meeting CMS staffing expectations. Moreover, some 43% of the Commonwealth's nursing homes received a 1 or 2-star CMS rating on a 5-star rating system. Virginia has more facilities with low staffing ratings than other states, and at the same time has a very high Medicaid level of care criterion, meaning that our residents are more frail than in most other states and therefore need more staffing. The Joint Commission on Healthcare study found that staffing shortages disproportionately affect homes with a higher percentage of Medicaid residents, low income by definition, and often Black. So those are the facts and figures, but in human terms, low staffing can mean unanswered cries for help, more pressure ulcers, more hospitalizations, more urinary tract infections, more COVID infections. The Joint Commission on Healthcare recommends and NVAN supports dedicated funding for nursing home staffing, especially for homes with a high Medicaid population, and any increased reimbursement should be tied to staffing. A second NVAN budget priority is funding for VICAP to increase free insurance counseling for Medicare beneficiaries and those duly eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid. We're very pleased that the governor's budget includes funding for VICAP, $600,000 in each year of the biennial. VICAP counsels thousands of Virginians each year, saving beneficiaries millions of dollars that are needed for other vital services. There's no specific program in Virginia to provide comprehensive counseling for duly eligible beneficiaries who often have multiple chronic conditions and low health literacy. While federal monies support VICAP, there has been no state funding for this vitally important function, unlike in some other states. NVAN strongly supports funding for VICAP in the governor's budget, as does the Commonwealth Council on Aging. Thank you.
#21st speaker, Winifred Allen.
Good morning. My name is Winifred Allen. I'm a mental health therapist with Fairfax County and a licensed marriage, family, and child therapist in the state of Virginia. I am also a proud union member of SEIU Virginia 512, where I serve on the union's Fairfax County Executive Board. I'm speaking today as a union member and also as a Prince William County resident, mother, and taxpayer. I am here to testify in support of investing in essential public services, mental health, healthcare, education, and for good union jobs for all Virginians. During the COVID pandemic, health and safety became front and center across the Commonwealth. However, for far too long, mental health workers and healthcare workers' safety has been largely ignored. My coworkers and I serve some of the most vulnerable populations, such as the homeless, people re-entering the community from prison, and those experiencing severe mental health crises and psychotic episodes. Unfortunately, the pandemic has only made the mental health crisis worse. Staff shortages, limited PPE, increased security concerns, and greater risk of death. This is hard work, but we do it because we are passionate about mental health and because we care for our community. Many therapists and staff are leaving because they are not getting the support they need, wages are stagnant, and they do not have a voice on the job. It should be without question that all working people have the right to negotiate over wages, benefits, and their working conditions. However, for 44 years, Virginia was one of just 3 states that banned collective bargaining for local public employees like me. Thanks to the General Assembly repealing that ban, Fairfax County, where I work, has passed a collective bargaining ordinance. So has Loudoun, Arlington, Alexandria, and the Richmond School Board. Prince William County voted last month to move forward with drafting an ordinance. Collective bargaining is the best tool we have in ensuring health and safety for workers like me, as well as good union jobs and quality public services for all working families. I am here to ask you to fund the following items in this year's budget. Number 1, please fund local government services, including mental health services. Number 2, please fund quality health care for all people with disabilities, older adults, and families. Number 3, please ensure good union jobs with collective bargaining rights and paid sick days for all workers. We look forward to working with you in Richmond this session to continue to keep our communities healthy and safe. Thank you for your time.
Speaker number 22, Ramsey Khorshid.
Good morning. I'm Ramsey Khorshid from McLean, Virginia. On behalf of the Virginia Coalition for Human Rights, VCHR, I'm petitioning for a JLAC study to determine why foreign direct investment, FDI, from Israeli businesses shouldn't be handled like FDI from other foreign businesses. Businesses from other foreign countries go through agents hired by the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, VEDP. Businesses from Israel have their own state agency to identify grant and loan opportunities in Virginia. In 2018, VIAB's board chairman lobbied to have VIAB moved out of the executive branch. He maintained at the time that VIAB was created in 1996 to function without any outside pressures and not be part of any agency or any governmental office. VIAB's executive director enjoys kind of dual citizenship as an FDI agent of Israeli companies while receiving a salary and benefits paid for Virginia taxpayers, by Virginia taxpayers. Israeli businesses have an unfair advantage over all other businesses, foreign and domestic, because their FDI lead agent has an office in the Pocahontas building. Wouldn't Martinville's employee-owned Blue Ridge Aquaculture have been a more logical choice than Israel's Aquamalt to bring capital investment and jobs to the counties of Tazewell, Russell, and Buchanan counties? VCHR requests a budget amendment to fund a JLAC study into the consistency and fairness with which FDI is managed in the Commonwealth. Thanks to the members of the House Appropriations Committee and the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee for listening to my testimony today.
Speaker 23, Brent Hunzinger.
Yes, good morning. My name is Brent Hunsinger. I'm with Friends of the Rappahannock, a watershed group that seeks to protect the Rappahannock River here in Virginia. I have a little laundry list of budget requests or things that we are supporting within this, the governor's current proposed budget. So I will get right to it. So thank you for having me today. The first thing that I will speak on is a budget amendment that we would like to see included in the coming budget, and that is $300,000 for 2 full-time equivalent positions to be housed at DCR. These positions would help carry out and develop environmental literacy and education plans, and to work with local partners on finding resources and developing curriculum. Currently, there is a large void of any leadership at the state level for environmental education, and we feel that these positions would go a long way to reinstalling that leadership where there has been a void for the last few years. The rest of my requests are currently reside within the governor's budget, and we support these. These include maintaining the $250,000 in funding for competitive grants that is currently for Chesapeake Bay Meaningful Watershed Educational Experiences. We would prefer that language be changed for statewide availability, and we will be working on this issue in the coming weeks. Regarding tree canopy conservation and preservation, we support the Department of Forestry requests that currently reside in the budget. $6 million for urban and community forestry programs, $3 million for the operation and equipment purchases at the New Kent Nursery to produce hardwood seedlings for our WIP 3 Chesapeake Bay goals, as well as $4 million for Trees for Clean Water programs. Currently in the budget, there for wastewater treatment plant grants, we support $27 million to the city of Fredericksburg and $16 million to the King George County Service Authority to upgrade and increase the nutrient removal technologies at installations and to build new ones at those localities. We also support the Belle Isle State Park shoreline restoration funding. That's $2,156,000. This project stands to prevent tons of sediment and nutrients from entering the Rappahannock River. We also support the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program, increase in funding to $4 million for this coming year. With that, it's very important that we maintain Soil and Water Conservation District technical assistance money. And so we do support the Soil and Water Conservation District technical assistance requests for increase in funding for VAX and VCAP and other programs. There's currently a budget piece there for $21,157,000 to support their work, the good work that they do. Also, there is a proposal with the Virginia Department of Health funding and full-time equivalent positions for a Chesapeake Bay septic pilot program, and that would help provide oversight of pump out and inspection programs for the Eastern Shore, Middle Peninsula, and Northern Neck regions of Virginia. This is a human health as well as a water quality issue that is increasing as coastal resilience issues come more to the forefront. And finally, we do support the $100 million allocation for the Stormwater Local Assistance Fund. I appreciate your time today and look forward to working with you all in the coming months. Thank you very much.
Speaker number 24, Jenny Atwood Lovett.
Hi, Hello, Honorable Appropriations Committee members. My name is Ginny Atwood-Lovett, and I'm the Executive Director of the Chris Atwood Foundation. We are a peer-driven recovery community organization located in Northern Virginia. And I'm here to request today that you vote for a budget amendment to fund peer and family support partner Medicaid reimbursement. So at the Chris Atwood Foundation, we employ 6 certified peer support specialists. They are an evidence-based intervention for individuals with substance use disorder and mental health challenges. And the use of peers is supported by a broad range of national leading agencies and organizations like the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Both quantitative and qualitative evidence indicate that peer support lowers the overall cost of substance use disorder services and mental health services by reducing rehospitalization rates and decreasing time spent in inpatient treatment decreasing time spent in inpatient treatment and increasing the use of outpatient services. So I have personally seen the magic that is the relationship between somebody who is suffering with addiction and their peer support specialist, because that peer understands them, not because they learned about addiction in school, but because they have been in their shoes. Our peer support specialists are out in the community every day helping high-risk individuals in active substance use to stay alive. It's not just about saving money, it's about saving lives as well. They're saving lives with support, resource navigation, and with naloxone and overdose reversal training. Just at the end of last year, actually, our organization logged our 1,000th life saved with our naloxone and overdose response training. But sadly, at less than $30 an hour reimbursement, organizations like ours and the community services boards can't afford to bill for peer and family support services through Medicaid. And this has crippled the potential for this essential evidence-based peer support workforce. I would like to say that for every $1 million the General Assembly invests in peer support and family support, Virginians will receive $2 million through a federal match program. And I am asking again that the committee vote for a budget amendment that would invest in peer support. Thank you.
Speaker number 25, Katie Kearns.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for hearing our comments today. I'm glad to be following Ms. Ginny, as I am a person who works as a peer recovery support specialist. My name is Katie Kearns. I'm in Alexandria, Virginia, and I come from a long line of Virginians, most of whom have faced and in many cases overcome similar challenges in mental health and addiction. And the reason that I've invested time and care into the types of support that are most effective is because it directly affects me and my people. This has included peer recovery support. And so I'm asking for your support providing Medicaid reimbursement rates for certified peer recovery specialists and family support partners. These rates being competitive show a value in the work that peer supporters and family support partners do. Receiving peer support is a leading intervention, which enables overcoming addiction and mental health challenges, as well as other chronic health challenges. What's so special about peer support is that it offers a level of acceptance and understanding and validation that's not often found in other professional relationships. Peer support features mutuality, and it uplifts folks in every single stage of the recovery processes. Peer support services can effectively extend the reach of treatment beyond the clinical setting into the everyday environment of those seeking successful and sustained recovery. In my everyday work, I am a peer employment supporter, which means connecting folks in recovery to meaningful work. So I get to support folks finding work and volunteer opportunities and contribute to our communities overall. This is really great for Virginia. It's getting people back to work and supporting businesses and supporting people to find things that are meaningful for them to do, which is an important part of the recovery process. And I can speak to that personally because it's working for me every day. So it's a real example of mutuality and a win-win situation. Currently, at less than $30 per hour, no CSB can afford to bill for peer and family support partner Medicaid reimbursement. according to the CSBs. And for every $1 million the General Assembly invests in peer and family support, Virginians receive $2 million with a federal match for people and families who are willing and able to receive peer and family support services. So I'm asking you to please support a budget amendment investing in peer and family support partner Medicaid reimbursement. I appreciate your time so much. It's been a real honor and pleasure to be a part of this meeting. So thank you all so much.
Number 26, Nancy Tishman.
Hi, my name's Nancy Tishman. I wanted to talk about the state of group homes for returning training center residents. After thriving for 5 years, my son's group home was hit by COVID. All 5 of the returning residents got COVID. Most of the staff got COVID. Everyone quit except for one worker who literally lived in the house 24/7 for 3 months. There was a quarantine. The families, the people are all old. So the ones that live, my husband has already died, did what they could. But the problem is, it was the second hit that was the worst. And it's good for some people, but Target and Walmart and everyone raised the rates, their wages past $15 an hour. As a matter of fact, the one other worker that was hired for the to work on the weekend just told me when I brought in her Christmas gift that she was going to work at the Wawa near her house because she could get $17 an hour, and without experience. We're not teetering at the brink of disaster. We're beyond that. This is really bad. I mean, I'm glad that Mr. Cosmo only encountered one time when he returned to one worker. We're lucky if we return to one supervisor at the house. And my fear is that someday I'll go there and there will be 5 severely disabled people who can't feed, dress, do anything, and no one there. We have to, as I said, the president says, if businesses want to stay in business, they have to raise wages. If we want to continue to feed severely disabled people, we have to raise the wages. It's just not an option not to. Thank you.
Our 27th speaker, Christine Clardy, does not appear to be on the line, so we will skip and go to number 28, Donna Shipman, but we'll come back at the end in case she was able to join us. Donna Shipman.
Hello, and thank you guys for hearing me out. Hi, I'm Donna Shipman, and I am with the Arc of Greater Prince William Insight. And I'm coming to you on the behalf of direct support professionals across the state of Virginia. I've worked for the ARC over 23 years and in this field over 30 years, and also across the country during this time. And I must admit, this is probably the worst I've seen staffing for individuals with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities. And it's all due to a lack of competitive pay. You need to know DSPs are struggling to stay in this field right now. They love their jobs and they love the people that they're caring for, but they are no longer able to afford to work direct care because of the poor pay. They're working 2 or 3 jobs, as Ms. Rodenheisen said earlier, to make ends meet. And this is not a quality life for anyone. So they're mentally and physically exhausted. I have to also admit that as a provider, we're mentally and physically exhausted as well because we're all vying for the same dedicated staff. We're sharing the same staff across the state. And unfortunately, this is what the system has come to with all the staffing shortages. Our agency, we opened a new group home where we purchased a new group home last year. And we've not been able to open this home We have the individuals with the waiver services available to go into this home, and a few of them actually have emergency waivers, but we cannot hire direct support professionals to come in and take care of these vulnerable individuals. So this house is left unopened. This is a travesty, and it's really, really sad. And as a state, I really think we can do better. We've got to get direct support professionals paid. Our DSPs, they take care of the most vulnerable citizens in our Commonwealth, yet the jobs are not respected or compensated competitively. As our political leaders, I'm asking that you rethink how you allocate funding. We need you to put value on our most vulnerable citizens. And how you can do this is by paying competitive salaries to their caregivers. And their caregivers are the direct support professionals. I'm also asking you to please, please, please support the ARC of Virginia and Virginia Access Plan to rescue DD waiver services and the systems. They're working so very hard and diligently to advocate for the IDD and DD populations and their caregivers. However, they cannot do this without your support. In addition, please fund rate increases for the ID waivers services. Please make them equitable to those in the state facilities. Those guys are receiving adequate funding to take care of the individuals, but those individuals in the community are being penalized because they want to live a life like yours and mine. And I know we all have it in ourselves to do better and be better and provide better for our vulnerable citizens. It's time for us as Virginians to end the institutional bias. And I would just like to say, thank you for giving me this time again. And I promise you, if you provide us with the funding, we will provide the quality care. Thank you.
For 29, David Savine.
Mr. Savine, I believe your whole statement has been garbled on your sound. Perhaps you could try starting again. We may have lost him, Andrea.
Let's move on to Kim Velasiano, and we'll come back, Mr. Savine, and hopefully we'll be able to hear you this time. Thank you, Susan.
Hi, I'm Kim Velasiano, and I'm here just to represent my son. We're Arlington residents. So in listening to everyone, I think my son is really like an Arlington, Virginia success story. He's 23. He's been through the school process, and he has just transitioned into post-school. I think he's had a success, he's been a success story, but I think his future is what's in jeopardy now and was what I'm worried about, and I think has been echoed by a lot of folks. So basically, this is Max behind me. He graduated from Phillips School in Annandale in June 2021, and we're very proud of him for making it down the aisle. He transitioned in a time of closed and reduced day programs. His dad managed to find him a job, actually at Mom's Grocery, so you might see him around, that occupies about 2 hours of his day and has an aide who can work with him there. But the majority of his time he spends with his dad. Additionally, again, with Team Matt, we call everyone Team Max, all the help we get. We did land an apartment in Queens Court, but he hasn't been able to transition into there fully because we cannot find an overnight roommate. So I've put flyers up at the Safeway, word of mouth. We're working with agency directed hiring. But the salary, and this has been the case probably for the past, as long as I can remember, maybe 10, 15 years that we've been trying to hire, the salary always seems to be like about half what people are actually asking for, people with the actual training and experience and interest, not just trying to pay their bills, but people who are like trained and interested to work with people with autism. Max is a happy-go-lucky guy. He likes to joke around until he is presented with other people. Very difficult to be presented with other people, schedule changes, and the other thing that's super hard is his inability to say what he's thinking and what he needs. And he will start banging his head and screaming as if he is in grave pain. It is not easy to find people who can give him the attention he needs. He's 23 and he needs a male aide because females are still very triggering for him because he's probably, they make him nervous. And we need someone who can help protect him from himself when he gets anxious. And this person, we would like to offer a living wage because they're going to get to know us in our most intimate and vulnerable place, which is our son, our most loved person. So anyway, I wanted to say we have a DD waiver and we're super lucky for that, especially hearing everyone else's testimonies, but that waiver is meaningless if he can't use it to secure the services he needs. Thank you.
Mr. Savine, let's try again. If you would go, please.
Good morning again. If you give me a thumbs up, great. I'm David Savine, Frederick County Public Schools Superintendent. Also serve as a VASS Legislative Chair. I'm sure we'll all agree that providing students with a high quality education requires high quality teachers to get the job done. As my school division and others across the Commonwealth struggle to fill teaching positions due to the national teacher shortage, it is critical that Virginia's teacher salaries are increased so they are more competitive. According to JLARC, Virginia ranks 12th in the nation in terms of income, but the average teacher salary of slightly below $55,000 ranks 32nd in the nation. In Frederick County, our starting teacher salary this year is $46,000, which results in gross monthly pay of just over $3,800. After accounting for payroll taxes, health insurance, VRS, rent and utilities, as well as a cell phone, car payment, auto and renter's insurance, and student loan payment, the first-year teacher in our district only has about $235 left each month for food, gas, entertainment, savings, medical copays, any credit card bills they may have. Is it any wonder it's hard to attract people to become a teacher? Virginia must do better, not just for our teachers, but for the students our teachers serve. Teachers do not do their work in isolation. They're supported by staff members whose jobs do not necessarily require them to be in front of students each day, but whose work unquestionably impacts student learning and each student's daily experience in school. I'm talking about those who serve as school social workers, school psychologists, custodians and maintenance workers, school nutrition services staff, and those handling clerical duties. Since the Great Recession, led to the implementation of the SOQ support position cap as a means of saving state money. Localities have been forced to either eliminate some of their support positions or fund them exclusively with local funds. Despite years of talking about restoring state funding for those positions by removing or phasing out the support cap, nothing has been done. With the state having a $2.6 billion budget surplus, it's time to address this issue. In my district alone, we spend $6.5 million annually to fund 163 support positions for which we receive no state funding. Again, Virginia must do better. Finally, I would ask that you consider proposals that represent unfunded mandates to localities. You simply vote no. Critical issues such as teacher salaries, the support cap, student mental health, school renovation and modernization, preschool, and the learning gaps caused by the pandemic must be addressed before any additional fiscal burdens are forced upon local school districts. I thank you.
Joanna Walker.
Hi, my name is Joanna Walker. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia. Thanks for your concern about mental health services in Virginia. Today, I'm asking for money to support people with serious mental illness who are newly homeless, and specifically to make laws that require counties to provide shelter beds for them year-round. I facilitate a support group as a volunteer for NAMI Northern Virginia, although I'm speaking today as an individual. And through this group 5 years ago, I met my friend. She's struggled with bipolar depression for over 20 years. She had a management position with the federal government, which was often interrupted by illness and hospitalizations. She tried without success many different medications, and also ECT, TMS, and esketamine. Last spring, she got fed up and went off all her medications, and she felt great and powerful and happy and manic until it all spun out of control. She made terrible decisions and was evicted from her apartment, accused of petty theft, which she doesn't remember. She wrecked her car. She withdrew and lost over $50,000 of her federal retirement to hotel bills, Uber, and especially to unscrupulous people who took advantage of her. By summer, she was completely broke. She begged friends for money for hotel rooms, and when she couldn't get any, she slept in public garages and parks. She and her caseworker at the day shelter kept looking for overnight shelter beds because she felt unsafe, but there were none. Then she was raped, and it didn't have to happen. The time between when someone becomes homeless and then receives services is a harrowing and dangerous time for men, women, LGBTQ individuals, and people of color, and especially for individuals with serious mental illness. Our overnight shelters offer overflow during the winter, but from the end of March until November, if there are no beds, individuals are turned away. We need laws and funding to make sure that overflow shelters are open year-round, because leaving someone who's seriously ill and vulnerable on the streets is not acceptable. It often takes months for someone to get a bed in a shelter or be approved for Housing First or housing vouchers. And in the meantime, people with serious mental illness are at severe risk. I also urge you to provide more funding to our CSBs who are facing severe staff shortages due to COVID and competition from the private sector and can no longer support same-day services. At my local CSB, phones were placed on hold up to 30 minutes and then switched to message boxes, which were full. My friend was asked to come back 4 times before she could be assessed for services, and it took 4 weeks after that to be connected to a caseworker. I made the calls for my friend and escorted her to the CSB, but I can easily imagine someone without this level of family or peer support just giving up. Please find the money to address these important issues. Thank you so much for listening and for your time today.
32, Mary Braxton.
Hi, good morning. Boy, do I miss doing this in person. So my name is Mary Braxton. I'm a child care specialist at the Child Care Network in the now infamous Fredericksburg area. I work with child care providers daily to promote high quality and best practices, as well as safe child care. For more than 25 years, I myself was a family child care provider, caring for infants and toddlers, preschool age, and school age children who might have needed before and after school care. Now my job is to assist those child care providers to become licensed and to offer free technical assistance and training to child care providers to strengthen the quality of care. It's unbelievable that we are entering now the third year of the COVID pandemic. This has been such a trying time for so many and for many families with children, as well as child care providers. Many people have been fortunate enough to be able to work remotely, but like other essential workers, childcare is an on-site job. There is no remote option. I have a few recommendations for considerations as the General Assembly gets underway for the new session. First, in December, Governor Northern announced extension of HB 2206, which was enacted by the 2021 General Assembly to expand child care subsidy for families with children under the age of 5. Given the state of the Virginia economy at the time, the bill was designed to help parents of young children go back to work by increasing eligibility for assistance to 85% of the state's median income. Governor Northern extended this law through May of 2022. Virginia's unemployment rate has declined since the spring of 2020, but unfortunately, there are still so many parents who are not working. To help parents return to the workforce, we urge that the House Bill 2206 from the 2021 session be extended through the calendar year 2022. This bill also only offered child care assistance for school-age children if they had younger siblings under the age of 5. Many parents of school-age children are still struggling to afford child care, so we are urging that the law be expanded to support families with both young children as well as school-age children. Also, with regard to child care subsidy receipt, we urge that the Governor Northern's proposal to eliminate the 72-month family cap on child care subsidy eligibility be eliminated. Child care is expensive and low-wage families need to be able to afford it. And an arbitrary time limit on child care assistance undermines the ability of parents to work and the opportunity for children to be in a safe place that promotes their healthy development. Next, child care workers are the workforce that supports all other workforces. We want our economy to work. We've got to have a child care structure and infrastructure that works, and we've got to support that. The child care work is on site. It can't be done remotely. And while child care is a work support, it's the job of the child care workers to promote healthy development for children. Yet for this on-site important work, child care workers earn about $11 an hour, $11.30, and many family providers much less than that. Efforts have been made during the pandemic to provide bonuses and assist them, but what is really needed is a wage supplement strategy to increase the pay for child care workers for the important work that they do so that they can remain in the workforce. What I see on the ground is a tight labor market where child care programs cannot compete against other local businesses to recruit and retain workers. My job is now 24/7. I get calls and emails from these child care directors and child care providers on holidays, on weekends, on Saturdays, on Sundays. They're struggling. We urge that the General Assembly use some of the supplemental federal dollars that Virginia has received to develop a wage supplement strategy with the Department of Education to somehow boost pay of the child care workers. Access to child care is the road to a full economic recovery in Virginia, And I will be submitting written comments, which will also include our full set of recommendations for the General Assembly for this coming session. And I also, again, want to stress, just as we unfortunately realized in a very difficult way, the importance of infrastructure on 95 and Route 1. And we've got to have that infrastructure in place and be proactive, or we're going to be caught in a really horrific crisis. And the same thing will happen with childcare. We've got to have a strong structure supporting the childcare workforce. Thank you for listening today.
Speaker number 33, Grace Reef.
Hi, I'm Grace Reef. I'm from Burke, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Childcare Aware Virginia, a statewide nonprofit network helping families and working with childcare providers. I'm not going to repeat what Mary said. I actually have other things to say. While the economy is better now than it was back when the pandemic first began, it's really not better for everyone. The pandemic has lasted longer than anyone ever predicted. The most recent Census Bureau data from December 2021 show that in Virginia, 260,500 families with children lost income in the last 4 weeks. These families continue to struggle, even as the statewide unemployment rate is improving. About 30% of families with children are behind on rent, compared to 11% of households without children. Those with income loss and also those who are behind on rent are greatest among families of color. A large percentage of families continue to have difficulty paying their bills. Over half of families with less than $25,000 in income, 62% of families with income between $25,000 and $35,000, about half of families with income above $35,000 and below $50,000, they're all struggling to pay bills. As the new General Assembly session begins, we have several recommendations. First, as Mary said, look at HB 2206 from last year. It's great to offer childcare assistance up to 85% of state median income for families with kids under 5, but open that program up to school-age kids. Families with school-age kids need it too. Second, it's time to invest in the workforce. Third, really, I'm the 32nd person to speak. I've heard what everybody had to say. And to me, I heard there's a fund balance, $2.6 billion. Somebody before me said that. Don't give it back to us in a tax cut. Do better on these DD waivers. Do better on these DD services. Do better on affordable housing. Raise the wages for people who are in in-home care and childcare, because our economy depends on those people. And one of the first speakers said, the data just came out with over 4 million people who quit their job. Those are the people in low wage jobs going to higher wage jobs. But all of these jobs matter to our economic recovery. So as you think about priorities this year, don't give us back the tax cut. Do better for the services that Virginia families need. Thank you.
Speaker number 34, Garrett McGuire.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Hello, my name is Garrett McGuire. I'm the chair of the Fairfax Falls Church Community Services Board. We are the largest CSB in Virginia, serving Fairfax County and the cities of Fairfax and Falls Church. Our CSB provides services to over 20,000 individuals. On behalf of the Fairfax CSB Board, I would like to align us with the previous testimony from many regarding the DD waiver slots and provider rate increases. Further, we support additional funding for existing STEP Virginia services, as well as funding for new services consisting of psychosocial rehabilitation, case management, and care coordination. These funds are critical as the gap between state funding and the actual cost of providing services continues to grow. In fact, since the implementation of STEP Virginia, the CSB has incurred $20 million in uncompensated costs for the existing services. And additionally, we support discharge assistance funds for the individuals in state hospitals who have extraordinary barriers to their discharge. Building out a comprehensive array of high-intensity services is of growing significance as the reduction of state hospital beds continues to impact individuals' wait time and access to needed inpatient care. The CSB board also requests that you consider additional funding for the opioid epidemic, as the existing reimbursement rates for addiction recovery and treatment services are insufficient to cover the cost of providing the needed 24/7 care. Such funding is particularly critical as the opioid epidemic continues to profoundly impact Fairfax County during the COVID-19 pandemic. Hospitals in the Fairfax Health District reported a 38% increase in the number of emergency room visits for opioid overdoses, including heroin and non-heroin, in 2020 relative to 2019. And these general trends have continued into 2021. Finally, I'd just like to reiterate the ongoing workforce issues hindering the CSB's ability to provide essential and effective services at the community level. While the proposed budget provides for increased community behavioral health and developmental services, it does not invest in the community staff who provides these services and care. The governor's budget provides $164 million for direct care staff in state hospitals, but there's no commensurate adjustment for local employees. CSBs are facing the same rising salaries and competitive workforce issues as the state. There must be an investment in raising the base compensation for the CSB to be able to retain and recruit the workforce that serves our communities. Thank you for your time and continued support.
Number 35, Vicki Fishman.
Good afternoon. I'm the Northern Virginia Director of Government and Community Relations for the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. The JCRC is the public affairs arm of the organized Jewish community, representing over 100 synagogues, schools, and institutions throughout our region. Since its inception in 1938, the JCRC has championed the cause of civil and human rights on the local, state, and national levels. Our work, the policies we have resolved to promote, and our advocacy is grounded in core values of the Jewish faith: justice, repentance, and the preservation of human life. It is from this perspective that we are part of the Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement. I am here today to testify about legislation to limit the use of solitary confinement and the value of incurring any costs of curtailing this harmful practice. It should go without saying that ending what amounts to torture is worth the cost of doing so. Yet, despite clear statements that 15 days of isolation is torture and causes long-term harm to a prisoner's mental and physical health, such isolations inexplicably still occur in the Virginia state prison system with minimal restriction and oversight. Isolation has been used to the extreme injury of inmates, and those from minority and impoverished communities are particularly at risk. Correctional authorities must manage behavior without resorting to this costly, damaging, and discriminatory practice. JCRC believes that conditions of confinement must be humane and that certain conditions, including the overuse of solitary confinement, can impose dire consequences more egregious than the sentences themselves. Further, lack of adequate rehabilitation, programming, medical and mental health services, educational opportunities, and family contact tragically result in individuals who too often are unprepared for productive participation in society upon release. These are the true costs of solitary confinement, and while harder to measure in absolute dollars, we all pay the price. Our ask is simple. When you receive the estimated costs related to legislation limiting the use of solitary confinement, we ask that you include those costs in the Commonwealth's budget. Failure to do so is acquiescing to the commission of torture by the Commonwealth's authority. Thank you for your work, and thank you for giving me the time to speak.
Number 36, Jane King.
Sorry, I am Jane King and have been a longtime participant as a member of the Alexandria Commission on Aging and participant in the Northern Virginia Aging Network. And I would like to speak today to our priority to require employers to provide at least 10 days of sick leave for all workers, including direct care workers in nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and home care. First, providing 10 paid sick days for all workers, and I emphasize all workers, is so important to prevent widespread contagion of illness, which we have seen so much in recent months. And much more dangerous than the flu, COVID has made the importance of paid sick leave a major public policy issue now with up to over 833,000 deaths in this country from COVID. And at this time, federal requirements for sick leave are very limited. 14 states and Washington, D.C. now have paid sick leave laws. In contrast to the United States, 22 countries require employers to provide paid sick leave. And paying paid sick leave is cost effective. The economic costs of a serious flu outbreak are enormous, according to the Center for Economic and Policy Research. Providing 10 paid sick days to direct care workers in nursing homes, assisted living, and home care is an NVAN priority because it is the heartbreaking truth that direct care workers can spread disease. And sick leave for direct care workers is especially significant because of their work with our vulnerable aging Virginians and those with disabling conditions. According to a nursing professor, these are the folks who can least afford not to go to work when they are not feeling well. And they may be, unfortunately, the ones who spread the virus. The alarming outcome of failure to pay paid sick leave for direct care workers is that they must frequently work while sick just to support themselves. Why is this so alarming? Because these workers clean and bathe residents, trim their nails, shave them, brush teeth, toilet and dress them, transfer them, serve meals, and help them with eating and activities. But the wages of many direct care workers are so low that many feel compelled to work when sick. They can thus expose those in their care, as well as family members, colleagues, and the public, to very grave illness. We do, and I do, however, want to thank you for taking a good step in passing legislation in 2021 that requires up to 40 hours paid sick leave for direct care workers, averaging 20 hours per week for Medicaid recipients using consumer-directed home care services. The General Assembly should provide broader ongoing sick leave for these critical workers to protect both residents and themselves as direct care workers. Thank you so much for giving the Northern Virginia Aging Network the time to present this case to you today. Thank you.
Number 37, Karen Tefelsky.
Good morning. Karen Tefelsky with Virginia Access. And although we represent providers statewide, we are physically located in Springfield, Virginia, and we represent the interests of over 30 providers in Northern Virginia, serving over 16,650 Virginians with disabilities. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. This year, once again, Virginia Access and the ARC of Virginia have joined together to advocate following 2 priorities and a DD rescue plan. But first, I want to thank you for your continued commitment to the DD waiver over the last few years. It has been substantial, but we need to ask you for even more. We've clawed our way from being 49th in the country to 38th in the country, but we're still at 38th, so we need to do better. Secondly, I'd like to thank you for the temporary 12.5% increase during the 2021 special session, which was funded by the enhanced 10% increase in federal HCBS funds. Advocates worked very hard to get this additional money from the feds to come to the states in order to help rescue our DD waiver systems. The temporary rate increase, which ends June 30th, 2022, was a critical lifeline or a tourniquet to stop the hemorrhaging of the DD waiver system and staffing crisis exacerbated by the pandemic. We had a staffing crisis before the pandemic, but it only exacerbated it for us this last year. And as you recall, it was really set up to be a temporary bridge to fully funding the rate rebase in the next biennium. The rate rebase report was ordered by the General Assembly, you, the fiscal committees, DBHDS, and the consultant Burns and Associates actually did the report with a work group of providers. And so we hope that you support the full work group recommendations. So what is our ask? We ask that you add to the governor's proposed rate increase for DD waiver services. The governor's budget only includes 8 of the more than 30 DD waiver services that exist in our system. The system is interrelated and interrelated. It's devastating to just fund some services and not others. It's not a whack-a-mole process. We need to fund the whole system. We can't pick and choose. Now, this will be a large funding request. However, it's really indicative of the inadequacy of rates since 2014. It's important to note also that the rate rebase that's recommended by the Burns and Associates includes increases based on the minimum wage increase. It's not based on a living wage. And it's also based on the 50th percentile of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In comparison, the Joint Subcommittee on HHR heard from Commissioner Land that the state is proposing, and included in the governor's budget, we find, that they will fund their state MH and DD institutional staff at 75th percentile of the BLS, that the state cannot be competitive in the marketplace for staff unless they're funded at the 75th percentile. We need equity for the full system, not just the public system. It needs to include both state and community-based services. As you know, it's a people business. 85% of costs for providers is staff. Unlike other Medicaid providers, DD providers rely solely on the DD rates provided by the General Assembly and included in the state budget. Our staff rates are 100% dependent on DD waiver rates.
Kindly wrap up, Ms. Tefelsky. Thank you.
Unlike other businesses, we can increase wages or decrease health and safety staffing requirements, administrative burden. We must live within our means. We ask for your support of funding the full DD waiver rate rebase report with no rate requests being below 12.5% effective July 1. Virginia Access and the ARC look forward to working with you during the upcoming general session. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 38, Susanna Taylor.
Good afternoon, members of the Finance and Appropriations Committees. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. My name is Susanna Taylor, and I live in Winchester, Virginia. My state delegate is Wendy Goditis, and my state senator is Jill Vogel. Currently, under the COVID-19 flexibilities available to providers under the 1915C Waiver Appendix K Amendment, parents are temporarily allowed to be their own child's paid caregiver. This measure is scheduled to end in July of 2022, and I am here today to ask that this measure be made permanent. My daughter Isabel is 10 years old, and she has CHARGE syndrome, which includes multisensory impairment, such as blindness and deafness, as well as overall cognitive developmental delay. She also has Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, which is a very rare and very severe form of childhood epilepsy, involving multiple types of seizures that are extremely difficult to treat. The severity of my daughter's needs makes it nearly impossible for me to be gainfully employed outside of my home and to still be on call for my daughter 24 hours a day, which has forced us to be a single income family. Receiving reimbursement for caring for my daughter this last year has made all the difference in the world. Despite the wage being significantly lower than what I could be earning elsewhere, the extra money I have been able to earn has reduced the financial burden my family carries. What I'm asking for today is that elected officials support the forthcoming budget amendment that House and Senate patrons will be introducing in the upcoming session that would enable parents to be paid caregivers for their minor children with disabilities permanently, even after this Appendix K flexibility expires. Additionally, please consider supporting the DD System Rescue Plan introduced by the ARC of Virginia and VA Access, which will help build community capacity for the waiver system. The proposals found within this plan will benefit all people with disabilities and their families throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you.
The 39th and 40 speakers don't appear to be here, Paul Nolan and Stuart Schwartz. So we will follow up at the end to see if they've been able to join us. Speaker number 41, Renee Greb.
Hi there, I'm Renee Grebe, a Fairfax County resident and the Northern Virginia Conservation Advocate for the Audubon Naturalist Society. ANS inspires residents of the greater DC area to appreciate, understand, and protect their natural environment. and I'm speaking to you today on behalf of our Virginia members. Thank you for the opportunity. First, I wanted to briefly mention ANS's support for the budget items for both Stormwater Local Assistance Fund and VCAP support through Soil and Water. Both provide critical environment funding. But we are especially thrilled to see an appropriation for the general fund for the Department of Forestry, a first time ever for a Virginia budget. And we ask for your support in keeping this funding in the budget. $14 million over 2 years would be an incredible help to ensure the Department of Forestry can help localities and residents protect and enhance the Commonwealth's tree canopies. Preservation and replanting of trees are always on my mind. Monday's snowstorm hit home with how much we need to advocate for continued replanting of tree canopy. In my neighborhood alone and our adjacent park, we lost so many trees to this extreme storm. Thankfully, many were invasive Bradford pears, giving us an opportunity to replant native trees. But this snowstorm doesn't hold a candle to how many trees are lost each year to development and transportation projects. A preliminary land cover data set from the Chesapeake Bay program indicates that there has been over 184,000 acres of net loss in tree canopy just within Virginia's Chesapeake Bay watershed between 2014 and 2018. That means, on average, an area of trees larger than DC proper were lost each year. Virginia needs this $14 million in support of the Department of Forestry more than ever to help us improve the environment in which we live to the benefit of our residents. Among other things, trees can help clean the water we drink, slow down stormwater from more extreme storms, mitigate heat island effects in urban areas with too much pavement, and provide habitat for the organisms that help sustain life for all of us. ANS was thrilled to work with our local Department of Forestry, Fairfax County urban foresters, KC Trees, and many community partners to get over 24 native trees planted this December in 2 communities along the Route 1 corridor, one of the areas of highest socioeconomic disparity in Fairfax County. We were thrilled to have Delegate Krizak join us for a ceremonial tree planting in November. And ANS would love to be able to do more of this work, and the Virginia Trees for Clean Water grant program is a keystone to help us and other organizations do this work. ANS is thrilled that 25% of the $4 million designated for the Water Quality Improvement Fund, which funds that grant, will go to low-income communities that need the trees most, like the ones that we worked with. We also support the $3 million for community and urban forestry with an emphasis to address heat islands. And this funding also includes 3 urban forester field positions for underserved communities which need them the most. So please support and preserve the $14 million in the budget for the Department of Forestry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We're having some IT difficulties with our 42nd speaker, so we'll come back to Vanika Bennett. But for now, let's go to 43, Chelsea Barnes.
Good afternoon, senators, delegates, and committee staff, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Chelsea Barnes, and I'm the Legislative Director for Appalachian Voices. I am testifying today to ask the committees to consider the addition of 2 budget items that will help to support economic development in the coalfield region and other disadvantaged areas of the Commonwealth. First, I ask that you fulfill the promise made to Southwest Virginia coalfield communities when the coal tax credits were repealed during the 2021 General Assembly session. The bill repealing these tax credits required a stakeholder process and report regarding how the state could help transition the struggling region. The report recommendations were ignored in the governor's proposed budget. In recognition of the report recommendations, we asked the committees fund 2 additional staff positions of coalfield community development program managers that would be placed within the Department of Housing and Community Development. These staff members will support the initiatives outlined in the Re-Energized Southwest Virginia report, which was published by Virginia Energy in December, which focused on how to support economic transition in the coalfield region. Specifically, these new positions would coordinate a cross-government approach to ensure effective implementation of economic and community development programs benefiting the coalfield region. Time and time again, local governments and planning districts in disadvantaged communities, and especially in the coalfield region, are unable to take advantage of federal and state funding opportunities due to a lack of staff capacity or awareness of opportunities. This new DHCD staff capacity would focus on providing planning capacity and grant support for the region to effectively maximize local applications for federal and state funding opportunities. Additionally, this new staff capacity would coordinate the proposed interagency task force outlined in Virginia Energy's report. Second, we ask that the committees fund the Virginia Brownfield and Coal Mine Renewable Energy Grant Program, or the Brightfields Program, which was established during the 2021 Virginia General Assembly session. This new program supports the development of wind, solar, or geothermal projects sited on formerly coal mined lands or brownfields, helping to boost economic development in disadvantaged communities while also conserving forests and agricultural land. However, this program does not have any funding. Providing funding for this program would help create jobs in both environmental remediation and renewable energy development across the Commonwealth in all areas that have brownfields. Lastly, we'd like to express our support for the governor's proposed investment in the Clean Energy Advisory Board's solar rebate program for low and moderate income residents. This program will expand equitable access to solar energy throughout the Commonwealth, ensuring that those Virginia residents most in need benefit from the electric bill savings potential that solar energy provides. Thank you for considering these important investments.
Thank you. We'll return to speaker number 42, Vaneka Bennett. If you would please unmute yourself. Vaneka Bennett. Right, we can come back if needed. Let's go ahead to number 44, Ellen Claire Lamb.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I am Ellen Claire Lamb. I live in Pentagon City, and I'm speaking today as the legislative lead for the Arlington chapter of Moms Demand Action Against Gun Violence. The 7 gun violence prevention laws that were enacted in the 2020 General Assembly are saving lives every day. What we don't know is how many lives they're saving or exactly how they're saving these lives, which is why we urge you to support Governor Northam's proposal for a Center for Firearm Violence Intervention and Prevention, which is part of the budget legislation sponsored by Senator Jennifer McClellan and Delegate Marcia Price. This center will collect, share, and publish the data we need to understand the root causes of gun violence and how best to address those causes while preserving the Second Amendment rights that so many of you are committed to preserving and protecting. We thank you for everything you've done to prevent gun violence, and we look forward to working with you in the session ahead. Thanks.
Number 45, Ann Little.
Hello, my name is Ann Little, and I'm the founder and executive director of Tree Fredericksburg. Our mission is to restore and maintain a vibrant urban forest in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I'm also past president of Trees Virginia, Virginia's Urban Forest Council, which is dedicated to enhance the quality of life through stewardship of our Commonwealth's urban and community trees. I want to echo what Brett Hunziger and Renee Grieve said in their remarks. As you have already heard, there are many benefits of trees. A few not mentioned that you may not know about is that they also prevent water pollution by retaining soil instead of allowing sediment in our rivers and streams and protect the aquatic creatures there. Trees also reduce the particulates that increase asthma, especially for children in minority communities. Some other amazing tree benefits: shaded asphalt streets last 30% longer than unshaded streets, saving costs and also reducing fossil fuel use in the building of streets. Views of trees from hospitals have shown to reduce hospital stays and speed healing. Here in Fredericksburg, we were losing an alarming rate of trees. Through federal grants for clean water from the Department of Forestry, we began rebuilding our urban forest. With these small grants, we planted over 8,000 trees since 2008 along our streets, at our schools, and in our parks. We make these small grants go a long way with volunteers and assistance from our 47 Fredericksburg tree stewards. In addition, Tree Fredericksburg has given away over 20,000 small native trees to local residents to plant in their yards. The need for trees is so great that we have people from as far away as Catlett, Virginia, come to Fredericksburg to get these tiny trees. We've had up to 5,000 volunteers come every year to help us plant trees. 2 years ago, 30 volunteers from a mosque in Manassas, Virginia, came to assist our efforts. You know, last year, one man told me that trees do not belong in cities. There are too many leaves. Fortunately, not too many people think this way. I see many dedicated people volunteering to increase canopy in their cities and work to restore that canopy. What we need is funding to help us and assistance from the Department of Forestry with their expertise and support. We believe that trees are the answer to so many issues. I urge you to support the $14 million in the budget for the Department of Forestry. Thank you for your time.
Number 46, Kenneth Nixon.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kenneth Nixon, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to discuss the governor's proposed budget. I'm speaking on behalf of the Loudoun County Community Services Board to ensure we clearly communicate our priorities for 2022 and beyond. There is a workforce crisis that has been exacerbated by the pandemic and is now devastating our ability to provide behavioral health and developmental disability services, even to individuals in crisis. The private and public behavioral health
Mr. Nixon, you seem to have remuted. Would you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry, my apologies. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please
So,
continue. Thank you.
The private and public behavioral health systems across the Commonwealth are impacted by workforce shortages as a primary challenge, including the ability to retain already trained staff. Now, right now, approximately 250 psychiatric beds are empty in the state hospitals due to workforce shortages. But the problem cannot be addressed just at the state hospitals as implied by the governor's budget. The lack of workforce across the Community Services Board means that mental health illnesses escalate without needed intervention. This crisis really does demand an immediate response. We are aware in this Commonwealth of the tragedies that occur when services and supports don't exist within the community to treat early and appropriately, and when the psychiatric hospital beds are not available when individuals are in crisis. We have a powder keg situation and the fuse has already been lit. We just don't know when the next explosion will go off. We respectfully ask that the General Assembly immediately establish a DBHDS and VACSB facilitated work group that will make recommendations for increasing workforce capacity for behavioral health and developmental disability services in the Commonwealth. The initial set of recommendations should be reported out by June 1st, 2022, with quarterly updates to follow. Minimally, we request that this behavioral health workforce crisis work group develop creative near-term approaches to improving compensation for critical behavioral health professionals and long-term strategies for increasing the pipeline of
Sir, you're remuted. Thank you.
Yes, CSB has proposed $167.5 million as a first-year investment in multi-year solutions to the workforce crisis. This investment includes quarterly recruitment and retention bonuses, funds to create a path to licensure by paying for clinical supervision hours, funding for student loan repayments, funding for scholarships to increase educational attainment. The Loudoun CSB would like to also draw your attention to the continued deficit in funding for STEP Virginia and the waiver rate rebates. Northern Virginia estimates that an additional appropriation of $42.5 million is required to sufficiently fund the existing steps in the region, and an additional allocation of $71.8 million is required for the state as a whole. The governor's budget excluded rebates to group day and group supported in employment services, which are essential services for adults with a developmental disability waiver. These services providers are experiencing workforce shortages and increased costs. An additional $14.9 million is needed to ensure continued availability of these services in Virginia. Thank you for your time.
May I come in on that?
Next on the list, we'll get to you in just a few moments, please.
Okay.
Let's return Vonika Bennett, number 42. We're having some IT issues. Would you unmute yourself and see if it will work this time? Vonika Bennett. All right, number 47, Joanne Aceto.
Hello, thank you for having me. Let me pull up the correct information here. I am the Senior Director of Employment Services for MVLE and a board member of Virginia Access. I also reside in Delegate Reed's district as well as Senator Bell's. MVLE has been supporting persons with disabilities in Northern Virginia now for 50 years. This year is our anniversary. In 2019, we supported more than 400 people regularly between our day and employment programs. Currently, in our day and group employment programs, we are supporting less than 40% of the individuals who are wishing to attend in-person services. That does not include people who have applied for services in the past 2 years. We currently have more than 30 staff vacancies that we need to fill in order to get people back to in-person services. As a side note, MVLE is a fully vaccinated workforce, and we applaud and know that we needed to do that in order to reduce health risks to the persons we support each day, but that is also added to our staffing issues. We know and appreciate how much you as a committee have supported the disability community and have helped us to remain in business and rebuild moving forward, but we need more assistance. As you've heard from everyone, we do support the efforts of Virginia Access and the Virginia ARC and all of the rate issues which have been discussed previous to my speaking. And in efforts with the Burns and Associates recommendations, we request that everything be looked at a 75% rate and not at a 50% rate tile. During the pandemic, we were able to utilize and move into remote services. As you all know with DMAS, those services were discontinued sometime in August. That has also been then a barrier for us to provide services to people who are not willing or not able yet to return to in-person services. So we would like to see that reinstituted. The governor's budget, as you have heard from others, does not include rate increases for all of the Medicaid waiver services. Not only are not all the services covered, but the 12.5% boost is not even in that for some of the services, particularly for group day and group employment. We would go back to old rates. We, like other vendors, have increased our wages for our staff, and we continue to struggle to hire people. And there is just a smaller and smaller pool of potential employees. We request, as has been stated by Virginia ARC and Virginia Access, rate increases which truly reflect the cost of services, a temporary infusion of funds to assist and for all of us to rebuild our staffing, and an absolute moratorium on all the unfunded mandates and administrative burden, which has been just plainly increased during the pandemic. These account for typically 40% of costs that are unfunded. Again, we appreciate the efforts of this committee. We look forward to working with you during this session. Thank you.
Number 48, Lenita Thuat, does not appear to be here. So number 49, Emily Tackett, please go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. This is Emily Tackett. I'm from Frederick County, Virginia, and I'm speaking on behalf of NAMI. I am an individual that reached out to NAMI's helpline during a crisis situation. I suffered a mental nervous breakdown, and I'm coming to you because Frederick County does not have the abilities to accommodate people with mental illness. We do have peer groups, but some of them are not being able to meet regularly because of the COVID vaccinations and everything that's going on up here in Frederick County, Virginia. Hospitals are packed with tons of people not being able to be seen by the hospital or the behavioral health. The suicidal hotlines have been running nonstop. They're been turned away from beds and therapy. Doctors, some of them are not educated very well. For example, I was on lorazepam, and my older doctor, he advised me to drive on the medicine, which is a narcotic. And I looked to him 3 times and went into therapy 3 times. He ignored me of it, and that's made me suffer my nervous breakdown. I do believe that we do need to educate more people on the illness, and if we could get more funds provided for illnesses as well as insurance for people that want to stay with their therapists and psychiatrists. Thank you.
Number 50, Kent Kaiser.
Yes, I'm Kent Kaiser. I vote in Arlington County. I'm an advocate with the United Spinal Association for equal access to health care for people with disabilities. Senators, delegates, thank you for your public service. And we hope you will vote yes to amend the Virginia's Medicaid budget to cover customized power and manual wheelchairs, which are medically necessary and are prescribed by a physician to meet the daily needs of residents of skilled nursing and long-term care facilities. Not only do these customized wheelchairs prevent medical complications like bed sores and pressure injuries, which we've heard a lot about this morning, these wounds can cost over $150,000 a piece. Studies overwhelmingly agree that these customized wheelchairs prescribed by physicians improve physical health, mental health, and overall independence of people living with disabilities. And if I could, let me give you an example. These customized wheelchairs include components that are known as complex rehabilitative and seating technologies. For people like me who have a spinal cord injury, or for others with traumatic brain injuries or strokes, these medically prescribed components allow us to be able to even use a wheelchair. Let me explain. I still need somebody to help me in and out of bed mornings and nights. But because of my spinal cord injury limits my trunk control, in other words, my ability to hold myself back in my wheelchair, I have a complex rehab component on my wheelchair that allows me to tilt back so I can function independently all day. Without that tilt function, long ago, I would have rotted away by being bedridden. Instead, for 14 years, that tilt function and the customized cushion I sit on have helped keep me healthy. 14 years and no pressure wounds, 14 years and no spinal cord injury related hospital readmissions, 14 years of earning a living, and 14 years of paying Virginia taxes. Please vote to close this critical gap. Every Virginian prescribed medically necessary equipment should have equal access to the technologies available to meet their health and safety needs, regardless of where they live in Virginia. And a special shout out to my senator, Senator Evan. Thank you.
Number 51, Carlos Solis.
Yes, my name is Carlos Soles, and good morning, Hubayota, Habari and Yoni, buenos días a todos. Thank you for being here with us, appropriation members. Today is an important day for me. 7 years ago, I had an ischemic stroke that took away my ability to communicate effectively and took away my voice. And today, I can use my voice again. I will tell you about my experience of brain injury and what survivors like me need. I always led a dynamic life. I was a multicultural, multilingual a community organizer and a trainer. I help nonprofits with leadership development, conflict management, and mentoring all over the world in the US and in the Washington metropolitan area. I focus on minority public health, including the Peace Corps, HIV prevention, serving on the National Council of La Raza, now called Unidos. I work for DHHS doing capacity building for nonprofit community organizations. I did a bilingual glossary. I even taught salsa and merengue at the University of Virginia. My work and my devotion to my wife and my 3 children took me away to East Africa to help do youth entrepreneurship. In 2014, when I was returned to the US to work for the School of Public Health at George Washington University, that my life changed. 2 weeks into my job, and without insurance, I suffered a stroke at 1 a.m. I laid in bed for 8 hours waiting for help. My 2 sons, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, were laying on my chest telling me that everything will be all right. The stroke affected my left hemisphere of my brain. I had confusion and memory issues. I developed a stutter. I was a successful communicator. I conducted my advocacy work in English, Spanish, French, Finnish, and Swahili, among others. I lost all these abilities. I was a Spanish spokesperson for a US presidential candidate. I did even a gala for another presidential candidate. I was a top fundraiser. Unfortunately, I was not given the resources I needed: imaging studies, neurologists, therapists, psychiatrists, and other providers that will eventually show me a path to a good life. I was left on my own for 6 years. I suffered tremendous depression. My marriage did not survive the strains. After 6 years, through a series of referrals, I put together a successful team of providers and services. I began to rebuild my life through therapies, nutrition, meditation, and prayers. Through my public health, I thought the public health system I fought for would be there. It fell apart. Instead, I fell through the cracks. If this could happen to a highly educated, highly performing individual who work in public health, what chance does an average survival have? You guys know that today in the Commonwealth of Virginia, 30,000 Virginians are disabled because of a traumatic brain injury or a stroke.
Sir, would you kindly wrap your remarks up?
Yes, I was going to run for office in Arlington. I did the Sorensen Training Institute. So this is what I need. The need is, we need more resources for nonprofits to achieve the statewide coverage for people with traumatic brain injuries, so nobody is left behind in Virginia. We need more minorities, Latinx, African Americans, Native Americans in the decision-making process. And we need a statewide campaign to inform lawmakers and the public about traumatic brain injuries. Because like you, survivors want to do our part to make this country a great place to live and raise our family. We also need Medicare for all. I make $15 an hour, and I'm a person with disability, and I need our assistance with a lot of different things. And people that know me are Senator Favola, Senator Evin, who's here, Delegate Rip Sullivan, and Delegate Channel, and my good friend, Alfonso Lopez. Let's all help assist new Governor Jenkins making this decision and challenge the law. Thank you very much. Heipa, Karibu Tena, muchas gracias. Have a good day. Thank you for listening to my testimony today, dear members. And let's make sure we do a good job once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 52, Kimberly Adams.
Good afternoon, everyone in the committee. My name is Kimberly Adams. I am the president of the Fairfax Education Association, and today I'm speaking to you as a member of the Virginia Education Association. There are so many important concerns that you've heard already today. There are 3 main requests that we as educators seem to come back to every year as we stand before you, either in person or virtually, to ask for in our public schools. Number 1, fully fund the standards of quality. Number 2, eliminate the cap on support staff. And number 3, discontinue and certainly do not add any additional private school vouchers. These past couple of years, a fourth ask has developed out of a lack of funding for the previous 3 items over time. There is a desire to address our pandemic needs that we add to that list. We have asked for your support, and you've partially answered the call in past years. Today, we're asking that you support the governor's budget and amend it to include more for our schools. As the president of a union in the largest locality within the Commonwealth, I can tell you firsthand, this has not been an easy time to be an educator. With more than 24,000 school employees who have always done more with less and sacrificed for our families and our students, we certainly appreciate that the spotlight has been placed on our pay most recently and in the current budget year and proposed plan ahead, but we need even more than this. Number 1, not fully funding the standards of quality has made it challenging to keep employees that are world-class and provide resources to ensure we meet student needs in the Commonwealth. The 2021 revised SOQs are critical to our mission, but they remain underfunded. We continue to ask your help in adding those funds. Number 2, the support staff cap hurts our students by underfunding and essentially eliminating those staff who help with remediation, attendance policy enforcement, and enrollment. And number 3, we know that vouchers to attend private schools divert necessary dollars from your spending priorities within our public schools. Now, fourth, these past nearly 2 years have been unprecedented in the face of the global pandemic. We've fought to keep our students and communities safe because we're on the ground doing the work. We know what it takes to teach and help students learn, but students' needs must be met before that learning can take place. Arguably, the most influential driver of our success in fighting this pandemic and restarting our economy was our schools reopening safely. Thankfully, with federal resources, we were able to make that happen. But as we face this surge in COVID cases, our numbers are higher than at any other time in the pandemic, and we're once again asking for support and additional funding. We need higher quality N95 and KN95 masks in our schools, increased support for air quality improvements, and additional outdoor spaces for learning, but especially for eating. School cafeterias are the main concern as we return to school this week, with over 200 students regularly eating and unmasked while talking in those cafeteria spaces. This risk is taken by not only your staff, but the students who are told they are safe at school. My own 9-year-old is worried about removing his mask to eat. Many others are so scared that they don't even eat at school. Can you imagine being a student too afraid to eat at school and they suffer until they're finally home to eat? We can do more to protect our children. And I hope that when the next school year comes, vaccination for COVID is part of the requirements for attending school, as so many other vaccinations and immunizations are required. This body may be asked to stand up and approve such a measure, and I hope that you'll remember the gravity of the situation on the ground. As I have added my comments today, take action to protect our students. Fund our schools, restore respect to school employees, and please continue to work to keep everyone in the Commonwealth safe. Thank you very much.
Number 53, Mary Hines.
Well, it's still good afternoon. My name is Mary Hines, and I am testifying today on behalf of the Arlington Community Foundation's Shared Prosperity Initiative. Since 2019, the foundation has been working to improve the prospect that very low-income people can remain in Arlington despite the lack of affordable housing, childcare, and as well as low wages. Based on nearly 3 years of work, I have requests for you today in 2 areas: affordable housing and childcare. First, housing. We ask that you dedicate state funding to the creation of affordable units committed to households earning 30% of area median income or less. In Arlington, that's $39,000 for a family of 4. Like other high-cost jurisdictions, Arlington has a significant mismatch between the number of these households and the amount of housing affordable to them. Even though these units are desperately needed, the funding needed to achieve 30% units is beyond the reach of most localities. Given the opportunities that may be before you in this time of vastly increased state revenue and federal funding, we encourage the creation of a set-aside, either in the Housing Trust Fund or at Virginia Housing, to address this critical gap. Secondly, childcare. As you all know, it's an essential service for Virginia's workers and a critical income-producing small business sector in Northern Virginia. All of our requests in this area are aligned with early learning positions held by Voices of Virginia's Children, VACO, the Virginia Chambers Blueprint 2030, the Virginia. I'm so sorry.
Please continue, Ms. Hines.
Okay. The Virginia Early Childhood Foundation and the Virginia Promise Partnership. The state made a number of helpful but temporary adjustments to its state subsidy program during the pandemic. Most importantly, we urge you to continue those changes that were enacted in HB 2206 through at least June of 2024. Beyond extending the state subsidy adjustments, we ask that you increase the state subsidy amount to provide a financial incentive for providers to participate, that you set rates using cost of quality modeling, and then you direct that subsidies be provided as a contract for blocks of service. Secondly, please help childcare compete with the public schools for teachers and assistants. Provide a wage supplement, create a pooled retirement program, and align state agencies to ensure seamless access by providers to the G3 training program and Virginia's ACA. And finally, ensure that VPI dollars are fully utilized in all jurisdictions by easing the requirement that VPI local match funds must be appropriated through local governments. Thank you so much for giving my remarks your attention. I wish you well in your work in Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 54, Emily Vanderhoff.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Emily Vanderhoff, and I'm a teacher with Fairfax County Public Schools. I'm also a proud member of my union, the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers, AFT 2401. I would like to share some of our union's priorities for the 2022-24 biennial state budget. First, we stand with the Fund Our Schools Coalition and share their 5 priorities: fully funding the Virginia Board of Education's revised standards of quality, lifting the support staff cap, which limits funding for school support positions, make bold investments to start providing adequate teacher and staff pay, invest in school infrastructure, and stand against cuts and repurposing of K-12 public school funding. As an employee of Fairfax County Public Schools, I also want to bring to your attention an issue that uniquely impacts FCPS educators. Last year, when the General Assembly passed a 5% raise for teachers, FCPS educators never saw that increase. This is because the local composite index determines a ratio of around 82% to 18% in local versus state responsibility for state budgeted raises in Fairfax County. And we only see the state's portion of the local government if local governments fund the full remaining amount. This left Fairfax County Board of Supervisors on the hook for over $100 million, which they said they couldn't afford to match. And so they initially budgeted for another year of frozen salaries. In the end, we were able to fund a 2% cost of living adjustment, while we watched the majority of Virginia districts fund 5% or more. This is the 8th year since 2009 that FCPS educators have had to forego either a step increase, cost of living adjustment, or both. Because we've had 2 consecutive years of salary step freezes, third-year educators who came into education in the 3 hardest years that we've ever had to experience are still paid on the same tier as brand new teachers. My teammate is one of these third-year teachers. She is growing into a phenomenal educator who has had to undergo more pivots in her 3 years than some educators experience in their entire careers. And being paid as a first-year teacher for 3 years in a row, she can barely afford to live in the county. We're asking the General Assembly to fund the state portion of the budgeted raise for educators, regardless of the locality's ability to match the rest, so that even if local districts can't afford the full match, their educators could still see the state's portion. Finally, I asked the General Assembly to oppose any repeal of the grocery tax. Local governments rely on these taxes to fund essential services to their communities, including public education. In Fairfax, the public schools budget is by far the largest portion of the county's budget, and this decrease in tax revenue would be a significant blow to FCPS funding. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Virginia's public schools have been called on to address inequities and gaps in public services that go far beyond the scope of our practice. Public schools provide so many services to our communities, but we need the staffing and funding to be able to meet our students' needs. In a time when educators are leaving the profession in never before seen numbers, it's time for Virginia to invest boldly in ensuring that our public schools are staffed at the recommended ratios and that our educators are valued and adequately compensated for their expertise and the critical role they play in our communities. Thank you for your time.
Andrea, I think you're muted.
Numbers 55, 56, 57, Camille Burden, Erez Rodham, David Waldred are not here. So number 58, Mariana Samova.
Hi, my name is Mariana, and I'm a special education teacher with Fairfax County Public Schools. I would like to urge this assembly to make investments to start providing teachers and staff higher pay. This is an urgent matter. Currently, teachers' pay is below the national average. What are the consequences of this situation? I would like to give you examples of situations that happened in the last few months. Two of my coworkers left the profession. They were experienced, highly effective teachers who poured their hearts into the classroom. One of them decided to be a tutor, and now she's making a better livelihood with less stress. The other coworker is in a process of planning her private daycare. The common denominator between those two former teachers was the frustration of lack of pay increase in the past few years. Another example, a special education teacher, the primary breadwinner, told me that she is not a middle class anymore. After 15 years of teaching, she is forced to have a second job in the evenings and work on the weekends as well. This situation affects both her health and her performance in the classroom. Now, how can someone care about students' achievement when their physical survival is at stake? How can someone be passionate about students' learning with their own children's needs not met? It goes without saying that raising teachers' pay so teachers don't have to work a second job will boost teachers' morale and help them stay focused in their classrooms. I strongly believe the state, Fairfax County, and FCPS need to provide funding to support substantial raise for our educators and staff. I hope that all entities understand that our public education system is at stake. Teachers are the intricate part of every classroom. Without them, learning is impossible. I know that our county is trying to hire new talent. However, my fear is that the current talent is going to leave faster than anyone expects. With the current inflation and lack of fair pay, nobody can blame teachers for leaving the profession. Some people can argue that new teacher will come, but let's not forget that it takes years, many years, an educator to become an experienced one. Also, many people won't go into the teaching because it doesn't pay enough and it's not an appealing career anymore. In conclusion, my appeal is for help, SOS, which doesn't stand for Save Our Souls, which is not bad, but Save Our Schools. Help our public school system by raising teachers' pay and allowing teachers to proudly say, I'm an educator. Thank you for the time, and I hope someone can help.
Number 59, Pat Victorson does not appear to be here, so we'll move to number 60, Ed Hazelwood.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ed Hazelwood. Senators and delegates, thank you very much for listening to everybody's concerns today. This has been really interesting. I am a lifelong Virginian, born in Richmond, raised in Tidewater, back to Richmond, and for most of the last 35 years here in Arlington, Virginia. I am on the board of the Virginia Bicycling Federation and also the Potomac Peddlers Touring Club, which is the largest bicycle club organization in the region. It's also the second largest bicycle club in the United States. So I'm speaking today in support of increased funding in the governor's biennial budget proposal for outdoor recreation and for multi-use trails. The proposed budget includes $245 million for outdoor recreation, with $233 million of that for multi-use trails. Specifically, the funding is aimed at completion of 3 multi-use trails around the state, So that would be the Fall Line Trail in Central Virginia, the Eastern Shore Trail alongside Highway 13 on the site of the former Bay Coast Railroad, and also the Shenandoah Valley Trail, which would link Broadway, Virginia with Front Royal, Virginia. These trails are important to Virginia for a variety of reasons. They provide a safe, active means of transportation, providing the final link to schools, to workplaces, and to transit stops. That's one very important part. But not only do Virginia's regional trails create safer alternatives for existing pedestrians and cyclists, they also attract thousands of non-local visitors every single year. This significantly enhances economic development prospects for the localities that they pass through. In Virginia, outdoor recreation employs more than 197,000 people. It also contributes an estimated $22 billion to the economy. And it also generates $1.2 billion in state and local tax revenues. So all of that is important. Virginia is home to a number of trails that have a sizable economic impact. Examples of this are the Cap to Cap Trail that runs from Richmond to Williamsburg, the New River Trail that goes from Galax to Pulaski, and the Creeper Trail from White Top to Abington. The Capitol Trail and the New River Trail in specific generate $9 million and $28 million respectively in annual economic impact. And more than half of the visitors to the Creeper Trail are coming from outside of the area. So that boosts Virginia's tourism revenue. Trails, as well as other outdoor enhancements like state parks, not only draw visitors, but they also improve the quality of life for the people that already live there. And that's important. I'm about out of time, so I'd like to thank you for your attention, and we look forward to working with you during the upcoming session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Ms. Onika Bennett?
Yes. Good morning, or should I say good afternoon. My name is Vonica Bennett, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Prince William County Community Services Board. I serve as a board member, and I represent the Woodbridge Magisterial District. I would like to address the need for a crisis receiving center, the need for additional CSB staff, and the need for local inpatient psychiatric care beds. Funding for a crisis receiving center is desperately needed in Prince William County. A crisis receiving center would provide our residents with a safe environment where they can receive treatment when they are experiencing a mental health crisis. Many people in our community have reported that they've been traumatized by the current process that we have here in Prince William County. Someone reported that they were intimidated or afraid by having to go to an emergency room when they were in a mental health crisis. While waiting in the emergency room to receive treatment, they were put in a dark, cold room with cinder blocks, left alone for hours with no phone, no communication, suffering in silence. Someone else reported that they went to the hospital for help, and instead of receiving treatment, they were involuntarily hospitalized because our current hospital does not have the capacity or knowledge to handle mental health crises appropriately. Another person reported that they were transferred 3 hours away to another psychiatric hospital because Prince William County simply does not have enough beds to accommodate our citizens living with mental illness. And the stories continue. A crisis receiving center would assist our community in meeting the demand for crisis services. It would also divert persons away from psychiatric care. Adequate funding is critical and necessary to meet these demands. The total cost for standing up a crisis receiving center is about $14 million, and the estimated cost to run it a year is $7.4 million. Currently, there's no money allocated to cover these expenses. We also need funding for emergency behavioral health services and workforce shortages. I believe that was addressed earlier by someone. Please provide adequate funding to the Prince William County Community Services Board to assist those living with mental illness and ensure that there is adequate staff to serve their needs. Thank you very much.
Number 61, Stephanie Paperno is not here, so we'll move to number 62, Jerry Pohe.
Thank you all. Thanks, senators and delegates, for facilitating our community input. I'm Jerry Poge. Ensuring affordable, accessible homes for all is my deeply held religious and moral imperative ever since nurturing an interfaith hypothermia shelter effort that served hundreds of neighbors. Longtime service on Fairfax County's Human Services Council and on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee shapes my testimony. Informed by previous speakers, please drive our next state's budget to increase funding for the Virginia Housing Trust Fund to $300 million per year, as well as increase the funding cap that each development project can request. Expand resources available to ensure legal assistance and aid to tenants facing eviction. Enhance and create additional state-funded housing tax credits and rental assistance programs for individuals with disabilities and people experiencing homeless, such as the Livable Homes Tax Credit, state rental assistance programs, Virginia Homeless Solutions programs, and previously provided housing choice vouchers. Increase funding for permanent supportive housing units allocated best on the size of the population served, and promote changes to state law to protect residents of mobile home parks, including greater assistance with relocations, expanded notification requirements for both tenants and localities, and increased timelines. Finally, promote changes to state law and policies for localities to amend land use and zoning to increase production of affordable, accessible homes. Fairfax County's new strategic plan for affordable housing includes immediate and future local resources to stem this threat to our economic sustainability, community cohesiveness, and commitment to racial justice. Our deficit of 31,000 affordable rentals and the coming need of 15,000 new units defines the economic development future for Fairfax and Virginia. This need presumes ensuring no net loss of every existing affordable home throughout our county. This analysis of needs predates the COVID pandemic, which revealed many more gaping holes in our social safety net. Our success will ensure recruitment and retention of county government, private, and nonprofit workforce during their productive work years and well into their retirement, compassionate and ethical care of those with physical and mental disabilities and the families and community that loves them, and human response towards those who suffer unanticipated medical, economic, emotional, and other crises. Please build back better. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Number 63, Larry Little.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this chance to address you today. I've been listening all morning and into the afternoon, and many of the stories I've heard have been eye-opening and heartbreaking. I don't envy you the task of funding all these competing priorities for finite resources, but I'd like to add one quick item. I'm an FCPS teacher and FCFT member. You've heard that here in Fairfax, our salaries have been frozen 5 times since 2009. You may think these freezes amount to an insignificant amount of money, but that's not the case. The effects are cumulative. For example, a beginning teacher whose salary is frozen 5 times in 10 years is out almost $31,000. A 20-year veteran is out almost $40,000. These amounts continue to grow through each teacher's career and continue through retirement, so any lost income at any point in our careers affects us for the rest of our lives. That's extremely relevant to me now, since I've been teaching for 44 years and I'm staring retirement in the face. What can you do to help? You can remove the requirement for local governments to fund salary increases
in order to benefit from what the state contributes. That requirement has hit us hard in Fairfax, and it's something you can fix. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Number 64, Neil McNerney is not here. So at this time, that concludes our pre-assigned list. If there are any citizen members in attendance who have not had the opportunity yet to speak, we would ask that you use the raise hand function to let us know. Seeing no indications, Senator Howell, I hand it back to you, ma'am.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank everyone who has participated today, both people in the public and our legislators. We, I'm sure, have gotten a lot of good ideas going down into the session, and we'll be taking very seriously your various comments. Chairman Torian, do you have a comment?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chairwoman Howell. I echo your comments as well. It's been rather enlightening this morning and afternoon to hear from the citizens of the Commonwealth, particularly here in Northern Virginia. And I'm sure we will take all their comments to heart as we return for session next week. So thank you so much for the opportunity to sit in.
I believe this finishes our public hearing.